and the recording is done. So once again, good morning to all of you. So let us discuss about what should be the step to get access to those repositories. So right now, if you have seen the contents, day one contents that I have posted onto the GitHub, as I have said that it is going to be a public repository for the first 2 or 3 days. And on Saturday, maybe today and maybe tomorrow, I will be keeping this repository as public. So public repository means anyone can access it. आप यहाँ पे directly उसको access कर सकते हैं. So whatever the link that I have provided to you, उस link के ऊपर आपने बस जाके click किया है. You have clicked that particular link, and what you are able to do is something like this. So you are able to see something like this particular website कि जहाँ पे आपको वो day one का content ऐसा दिख रहा था. So what you should be doing is you can either click on this code and you can download this particular zip file. आप यहाँ से उसकी zip file download कर सकते हो. So every day you are going to download a zip file, you will be getting all the contents. यानी कि अगर आप day 2 का zip file download करने जाओगे आज का, you will be getting the day 01 as well as day 02 contents inside it. If you don't want it like this, कि सर नहीं मुझे डेली का डेली उसी डे का कंटेंट डाउनलोड होना चाहिए, I want to keep it somewhere into my, let's say, folder structure in my drive D, E or F. What you can do is you can start using the git commands. आपको git commands को use करना पड़ेगा. Now, while using the git commands, there are different challenges that you must know. You must be bit familiar about the git. Then and then it is possible. So there are few steps that I can just share it with you. So if you get to know this, it is really good. If you feel ki nahi sir, this is going to be too much, then as I said, you can just download this entire zip. आपको चाहिए तो पूरा का पूरा zip ही download करो. अच्छा, not only that, if you can just start opening this particular file, अगर आप open भी करोगे, you are even able to access this entire part over here. So it's your call how you want to access it. Now, if you want to generally download it, if you want to, let's say, get this entire data day wise on daily basis, what you can do is you can copy this particular HTTPS link. So here there is a button called as HTTPS where it says clone using the web URL. It says clone using the web URL. तो आप इसको copy कर सकते हैं. And after copying, what you can do is whichever repository that you want to clone, wherever you want to clone. Let's say I want to clone it inside the D. तो यहाँ पे आपका फोल्डर बना दो. So let's say this is going to be my core Java folder, and inside this folder I want this repository to be cloned. So just open the terminal over here. आप यहाँ पे terminal को open करो. Right click, you open the terminal, and what you can say is git clone, and you can paste that URL. आप उस URL को paste करो, and the data is going to be cloned. Clone in the sense वो पूरा data यहाँ पे copy हो जाएगा. Now once that entire data is been cloned, यानी कि एक बार वो data आपका यहाँ पे copy हो चुका है, then what you can do is on a daily basis आप इसके अंदर जाकर के, यानी कि you can go inside this core Java where you have present with this day 01, day 02, यहाँ पे जाके terminal को open करना है and you have to say git pull. So clone will be done only once. However, git pull can be done on daily basis. Clone एक ही बार होगा, copy एक ही बार होगा. उसके बाद जो भी नए चेंजेस होंगे, all the new changes are going to be pulled frequently. उसको pull किया जाएगा. So this is how generally the Git works. So it is a kind of a developer tool that generally the company people do prefer. Even we do prefer for our pre-CAT batches. So if you are from the pre-CAT batch, you might know this particular part. But if you don't know this particular part, this is the way it can be done. So I would say कि rather investing a lot of time into understanding of Git over here कि सर वो Git के साथ काम क्या करना है, is it too complex, so क्या करे क्या ना करे. So I do recommend कि you don't waste time because we have only 20 days with us and your entire focus should be on core Java. So if you're not aware about the Git, you just keep it aside. उसको बाजू में रखो, नहीं चाहिए. So what you can do is you just start accessing it directly from this particular website. तो आप क्या करो, आप directly यहाँ पे maybe let me just close this terminal. So let me delete this. I don't need that. So what you can do is you can just open this particular website and you can just start accessing those files. जो फाइल चाहिए वो access करो. And maybe on the last day you can just download this entire code. तो आपको वो भी मिल जाएगा. Download zip करो, पूरा का पूरा zip मिल जाएगा. Extract, you just extract it and you get those files. तो ये भी चलेगा. You have both the ways. Whichever way you are comfortable, you should be working with it. Very first thing. Okay, don't stress out yourself कि सर वो Git का क्या करे. Don't stress out. Make sure just to access it in this way. Now the second part, you can access this entire website, यानी कि whatever the repository that you're able to see, this core Java 015, You can only access it if you have got the proper permissions. Right now, this repository is a public repository. Public means anyone can access it. Anyone can access it. So after our free demo sessions, this repository is going to be made as a private repository. यानी कि इसका जो settings है उसका वो public से a private बन जाएगा. Now when it is going to be made as a private, now this link cannot be accessed by anyone. वो कोई भी इस repository को access नहीं कर सकते. Only those people who have the permissions to access it can access this particular URL. So how to get this permission? How will I get the permission to access this particular repository? So to get the access, you need to provide your GitHub IDs. So what is a GitHub ID? Now see this. Whenever you log into your Git, जब भी आप Git के ऊपर login करते हो, so on the right hand corner, what you get is your profile section. So on the profile itself, whatever this username that you are able to see, username I am talking about, कि जिस username से आप login कर रहे हो, you are able to log into the particular Git. So that particular username is your GitHub ID. ये actually आपका GitHub ID होता है. So what you need to do is you just need to copy this GitHub ID. इसको copy करना. And you have to go on the students portal. So whoever has paid the fees, यानी कि जिनका भी payment complete हो चुका है, they will get the access to this particular students portal. So maybe the students portal is right now having a bit of load. Hope so. So you have to go onto the students portal, and onto the students portal under the, let's say, profile section, you just need to edit that particular profile और आपको वहां पे GitHub की ID को add कर देना है. That is what you need to do. So why it is not opening? Let me say students.sunbeamapps.org. Is this website down? Maybe staff. Let me check. The staff is working correctly. Staff काम कर रहा है. Maybe students. Let it be. I will be showing it to you once again in between after the break as well. Let us open this particular website. ये backend में open होने दो. I will keep it minimized. So students portal पे आपको जाना है. You have to go onto the students portal. Log in with your username and password. आप username passwords के ऊपर log in करो, and yes, it is going to be logged in. So thank you very much. So I think it is /auth/login. I was missing it over here. So Chetan has helped me. Good Chetan. So I will just input the registration number again. मेरे पास already है. So I will be just copying this. Maybe I will be using this. Copy 37442. Sorry, say 37442. Maybe I will paste the password. Yes, that's it. So you can just go onto this particular website, that is students.sunbeamapps.org, and whatever the dashboard that you will be getting, यहाँ पे आप अगर नीचे scroll करोगे तो आपको एक profile का section मिलेगा. Go into this profile section and you can just edit your profile. ये देखो ये आपका profile ऐसे कुछ दिखेगा. So click on this edit, and wherever it is present GitLab ID, यहाँ पे जाकर के आपका वो GitHub का ID paste कर दो. So this is going to be like this. So copy this, and I'm going to just paste it like this. इसको paste करो, and you just have to say update. That's it. जैसे वो update करोगे, the moment you are going to update it, आपका GitHub ID हमें मिल जाएगा. यानी कि whatever the admin department that we have, whatever the team that we have, so they are going to copy those GitHub IDs और उनको इस core Java के अंदर access मिल जाएगा. Only those people will be getting the access to this particular repository. Whenever this is going to be private. अभी initially सबको मिलेगा because it is public, but जैसे private हो जाएगा, you won't be able to see this, and you will be having the questions कि सर हमें अब नहीं दिख रहा है. ठीक है? So the first thing that you need to do is you have to edit this, and you have to add the GitLab ID, and whatever the GitHub ID that you have into this. Now once you do this, ये करने के बाद एक और step आपको यहाँ पे करना होगा. So one more step that you have to do it over here. Whenever you are going to add this, we are going to send you the request to access this particular URL, and whatever your registered email is onto the GitHub. So इस GitHub के ऊपर जो भी आप register कर रहे हो, जिस email के साथ register कर रहे हो, so on that email you will be getting an invitation to work with this repository, and you have to accept that invitation. So it will be saying that GitHub, this particular repository is requesting the permission, and you can just view this invitation and you can accept this to access this repository. तो जैसे आप उस invitation को accept करोगे तो ही आपको ये repository का access मिलेगा. Then and then you will be able to access this repository. Otherwise इसका access नहीं हो पाएगा. यानी कि आप repository का एक्सेस के लिए आप गिटहब आईडीज तो डाल दोगे, बट यू विल बी एक्सपेक्टिंग कि इमीडिएट दिख जाएगा. नो, यू हैव टू एक्सेप्ट दैट इनविटेशन. इट इज द वी कुड से ऑथेंटिकेशन दैट गिटहब इज प्रोवाइडिंग फॉर ऑल द यूजर्स. सो वो चाहता है कि एवरी यूजर शुड एक्सेप्ट द इनविटेशन, देन एंड देन द रिक्वेस्ट शुड बी मेड. अदरवाइज ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि रैंडम किसी को भी रिक्वेस्ट जा चुका है, एंड दैट इज द रीजन यू हैव टू एक्सेप्ट द इनविटेशन एंड यू विल बी गेटिंग द एक्सेस. तो ये काम करने के लिए यू हैव टू फॉलो दिस टू स्टेप्स. ठीक है. सो द वेरी फर्स्ट स्टेप इज कॉपी दिस कंटेंट. यहाँ से आपका गिटहब लॉगिन करने के बाद, लॉगिन इन द सेंस व्हेनेवर यू आर विजिटिंग दिस पर्टिकुलर यूआरएल, या फिर आप गिटहब को लॉगिन कर रहे हो, यू जस्ट गो टू द प्रोफाइल, कॉपी द यूजर नेम, दैट इज योर गिटहब आईडी, go on to the students portal, under the profile section click on edit, and you just paste it. That's it. This is how you can just do it. So that's all the things that you have to perform to get access to the data. Videos, as we talked about, so Saturday's video we have already posted onto the YouTube. Again, that video won't be taken down, so it has no restriction of 7 days for it. तो 7 दिन का restriction उसके ऊपर नहीं है. Even today's video, maybe we will be uploading onto the YouTube. Again, it is not going to have a 7 days restriction. Maybe जैसे हमारा paid का, यानी कि the moment we are going to go with the paid users, so whenever you will complete the fees and will make this entire session as private, then all the recordings will be kept onto a separate server. That is a DynTube server, a more secure server, I could say. So that will be having the restriction of 7 days definitely. So because the first two sessions I could say are an open sessions for demo lecture sessions, so that will be available on YouTube as well. Yes, let me close this part and then I will talk about it. So I hope you have got the information about how to work with the Git and how to just copy those IDs and you can post it onto the, let's say, students portal. If I've got that idea, if you don't have any questions, then I will move on to the next questions. Any questions so far? इसके ऊपर कुछ क्वेश्चंस होंगे, लेट मी नो. Good. Now, can we ask post-related questions on WhatsApp group? Yes, definitely. So, as I have said, whatever the message that I have posted, so you could have got my number over there. So, what you can do is you can just post directly a message to me as well. Even if you post onto the WhatsApp group, we do answer those questions. But ऐसे हो सकता है कि there are multiple things that are posted onto the group. Maybe some are having some different kind of questions. Maybe some can be field-related questions. तो वो कहीं ना कहीं मिक्स ना हो जाए. So what you can do is even you can post on your WhatsApp group as well as even you can post the questions to me personally. आप मुझे personally भी questions post कर सकते हो. Whatever the course related things that you have, you can definitely post it. Not only that, you can stay into the meeting with me after 1 p.m. and you can have your personal doubt session over with me. तो वहां पे भी मैं आपके लिए available रहूंगा जरूर. So don't wait to just post the message. You can directly talk with me during the meetings. That is what you can. My WhatsApp number. I do have my WhatsApp number. I think I have posted a message. That's my number. You can personally definitely ping me and you can text a message to me. WhatsApp पे ही text कर सकते हो, चलेगा. No big deal. Fine. So I think it's now 9:15 and it's time to start with the contents now. So on Saturday, we started with the basics. Okay, let me clear this. Yesterday, or I could say even a day before yesterday, I posted a message onto the WhatsApp group. Day 1 data is been added, and I think I have even posted a reply that I will be taking this agenda and contents. That's my WhatsApp number. So I have texted personally into the WhatsApp group. So that is my personal WhatsApp number. Yes, I hope so. You have got the answer. Fine. So I think now let us begin with the contents. Guys, should we begin with the contents now? Main technical part चालू करें. Are all of you there? Because I can see 22 out of this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 4 are faculties. 5. Okay, yes. I think the count is good today. So let us start with the technical contents now. So on Saturday, we started, let's say, with the basics, or we could say the fundamentals, or how to learn a particular language. That is what we discussed entirely. We even talked about installation, that what are the steps that you need to perform for the installation of Java. Second, why to do it, yani ki why JDK, what is present inside JDK, what are the different things that you get. All those things we have discussed. Not only that, we have also covered a simple hello world program. We even discussed about why the main is written in that way. यानी कि मेन को लिखने का ऐसा ही क्यों तरीका है, इवन दैट वी डिस्कस. So many of the basic things that we have discussed whenever we start with the program. So you can imagine कि entire 4 घंटे हम लोग सिर्फ ये बात कर रहे थे कि what is Java, what we need for its installation, and why the main is written like that. So now moving a step ahead, अब थोड़ा सा एक step हम लोग आगे जाएंगे, and now we are going to do some programming into it. Now we will be understanding some fundamentals about the language, यानी कि उस language के अंदर क्या क्या है. So first we will talk about the fundamentals of the language. Now, whenever you talk about fundamentals, fundamentals talk about what are the different data types that you have, what will be the kind of naming conventions, the keywords, the operators, and so on and so on. हमें जितना important है, we will first of all talk about it. So whenever you come in Java, so whenever you start with the programming in Java, the very first thing that you must know are the naming convention. Are the naming convention. Because Java जो है, इसको काफी strictly follow करता है. Java follows this naming convention very strictly because you can observe this entire thing even into its documentation as well. अगर आप Java 8 का documentation, the links that I have provided to you, if you have gone through the entire contents, you can find it out. The way they have given the names to the classes, the way they have given the names to their methods, the way they are giving the names to those interfaces, to let's say those abstract classes, to the fields, variables that they are declaring, they are following a proper naming convention over here. And that is a strict rule that you need to follow when you are in Java. Do not write the classes anyhow. Do not write the variables anyhow. It should have a proper naming convention. What are the naming conventions first of all? So there are two types of naming conventions. The first one is called as the camel case naming convention, and the second one is called as the Pascal case naming convention. So ये naming convention करने के दो तरीके हैं, एक होता है camel case, दूसरा होता है Pascal case. What is the difference between these two? So when you talk about camel case naming convention, it says all the, or we could say the first letter of all the words should be kept as capital except the first word. Listen to it. Every first letter of word should be capital except first word. So what does it mean? So it means like whenever you are creating a variable, wherever you are creating a particular function, so that particular variable, that particular function can be made up of a single word or with multiple words. यानी कि वो single word का let's say variable हो सकता है या फिर multiple words का वो variable हो सकता है. Now whatever the variable that you are creating, whatever the number of words that you have, so every first letter of the word, whatever the words that you have, उन सभी words का पहला letter क्या होना चाहिए? Capital होना चाहिए, except the first word. Now how does it work? Say this. Suppose I want to create a variable called as a salary. Salary नाम का एक variable चाहिए. How you will create? You will say salary. Now how many words do we have? Only one word. एक ही word है. Camel case naming convention कहता है every first letter of the word should be capital, लेकिन except what? First word. हमारे पास एक ही word है, तो obviously बात है salary ऐसे ही, यानी कि यहाँ पे no change. Everything will be kept in small case. Now suppose I have something called as total salary. मुझे एक और variable चाहिए. Total salary. So if you want it as a total salary, that comprises of two words. तो वो दो words का बनेगा. So if it is of two words, that means total and salary. ये दो words बने. What camel case naming convention says? Every first letter of the word should be capital except first word. पहला word कौन सा है? Total. इसको कोई change नहीं आएगा. Everything will be in small case. But this second word salary, इसका पहला letter क्या होना चाहिए? Capital होना चाहिए. This is what the naming convention you have to use it in Java, which is the one camel case. Where should be using this? ये आप कहाँ पे use करोगे? So this you are going to use it for creating the variables. I could say variables create करना है तो, और you want to create the functions. अगर आपको variables declare करने, अगर आपको functions बनाने हैं, not only that, even if you want to pass the parameters to the functions, function को parameters भी pass करना है, you must be using this camel case naming convention. That is what you must be using first of all. एक और एग्जांपल लेते हैं. लेट्स से आई वांट टू क्रिएट अ फंक्शन कॉल्ड एज कैलकुलेट टोटल सैलरी. सी दिस फंक्शन का नाम है कैलकुलेट टोटल सैलरी. So we have a salary, we have a total salary, and we have a function called as calculate total salary. So again, for the functions, you have to use a camel case naming convention where it says every first letter of the word should be capital except the first word. तो यहाँ पे total एक word बना तो इसका D capital होगा, salary एक word बना तो इसका S capital होगा. However, calculate, because it is the first word, it will be kept into the small case. This is the way you should be using the camel case naming convention for the variables, function, and the parameters. Is first camel case naming convention clear to you? It is really simple. Second, we have the Pascal case naming convention. When you talk about Pascal case naming convention, it is really simple. Every first letter of the word should be capital. Should be capital. So just like the camel case naming convention, without any exception. It is similar to the camel case naming convention without any exception. So for example, where should we use this? पास्कल केस नेमिंग कन्वेंशन ऐसा सर, ये कैमल केस नेमिंग कन्वेंशन जैसा ही है, बस ये एक्सेप्शन नहीं है यहाँ पे. सो एवरी फर्स्ट लेटर ऑफ द वर्ड शुड बी मेड एज कैपिटल. सो दिस पर्टिकुलर थिंग शुड बी यूज्ड फॉर क्रिएटिंग द क्लासेस, यानी कि वेयर टू यूज इट, इसको आप यूज कहां पे करोगे. सो टू क्रिएट द क्लासेस, टू क्रिएट द इनम्स, टू क्रिएट द इंटरफेसेस, यू शुड बी यूजिंग दिस टाइप ऑफ नेमिंग कन्वेंशन. यानी कि क्लास क्रिएट करना है, इंटरफेस क्रिएट करना है, इनम क्रिएट करना है, स्टार्ट यूजिंग दिस टाइप ऑफ नेमिंग कन्वेंशन. एग्जांपल के लिए लेट्स से आई वांट टू क्रिएट अ क्लास कॉल्ड एज एम्प्लॉय. अगर एम्प्लॉय का क्लास क्रिएट करना है, लुक एट दिस, एम्प्लॉय इज अ सिंगल वर्ड, तो यहाँ पे एम्प्लॉय नाम का क्लास इस तरीके से विद ई कैपिटल क्रिएट हो जाएगा. लेट्स से आई वांट टू क्रिएट अ क्लास कॉल्ड एज लेट्स से इनवैलिड एक्सेप्शन, और मे बी आई कुड से इनवैलिड डेट एक्सेप्शन. 3 वर्ड्स का लेट्स से वो क्लास मुझे क्रिएट करना है. इट इज गोइंग टू बी invalid date exception. See the way I am writing those particular classes. तो यहां पे मैं यूज कर रहा हूं पास्कल केस नेमिंग कन्वेंशन वेयर एवरी फर्स्ट लेटर ऑफ द वर्ड इज बीन kept as capital. That's your Pascal case naming convention. So दो type of naming conventions which is popularly used in Java, and we have to also use it because this is the same thing you will be observing it into the documentation also. आप जावा का डॉक्यूमेंटेशन ओपन करके एक बार चेक भी कर सकते हो. So let me open that particular documentation for you. So maybe I could say Java 8. So you can find it out. These are the packages. So into the packages, if you look at the classes, look at this. These are the classes. So classes के अंदर आपने class देखा था system नाम का. So because this is a class, you will find it out because it is a single word. It has been kept into the capital. क्योंकि ये Pascal case naming convention को follow कर रहा है. Not only that, if you look at the variables that are being created, these are the variables, these are the fields, ERR, in, out, everything is kept into the small. एक ही word का है. It is using the camel case naming convention. Not only that, you can look at this particular methods or functions. We could say, can you see that clear property? C is small, P is capital. Again, it is using the camel case naming convention for the functions. So ये कहीं ना कहीं Java काफी strictly follow करता है, and while you are working in Java, you should also follow this strictly. And that is the reason कि आपने देखते वक्त कल, और sorry not कल, on Saturday you might have seen that when we created this class called as a program, it was created with the P as capital. आपने ये जरूर नोटिस किया होगा कि उसका प्रोग्राम का P जो था वो कैपिटल था. Why? Because we are using the Pascal case naming convention. These are the naming conventions that we must be using while you are working with Java. I hope these naming conventions are clear to you. Any questions into the naming conventions first of all? पॉसिबल तो है बट दिस इज नॉट रिकमेंडेड. यू कैन यूज एनी नेमिंग कन्वेंशन. मैं लिखते वक्त कैसे भी लिख सकता हूँ. इवन इन सी प्लस प्लस, इवन फॉर एनी प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज, आप कुछ लिखते वक्त ऐसे num1 भी डिक्लेयर करते हो. बट दिस इज नॉट रिकमेंडेड. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट रिकमेंडेशन. आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट सिंटैक्सेस. सिंटैक्टिकली दिस इज अलाउड, बट प्रोग्रामेटिकली और वी कुड से एज अ इंडस्ट्री स्टैंडर्ड दिस इज नॉट अलाउड. ये रिकमेंडेड नहीं है. कैन वी स्पेशल सिंबल्स? स्पेशल सिंबल्स वगैरह आगे चलेंगे, इससे पहले नहीं चलेगी. इफ यू वांट टू क्रिएट द वेरिएबल्स, यू कैन स्टार्ट इट विद अंडरस्कोर. आप उसको नंबर से स्टार्ट नहीं कर सकते, यानी 1 2 3 से इससे स्टार्ट नहीं कर सकते. दैट इज हाउ यू शुड बी डिक्लेयरिंग इट. जनरली जो चीजें चाहिए डेवलपमेंट में, जो स्टैंडर्ड है, दैट वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्टैंडर्ड्स. करेक्ट? यस. इज स्पेस अलाउड इन नेमिंग? इंस्टेड ऑफ स्पेस, आप जनरली दे सकते हो, लेकिन इंस्टेड ऑफ स्पेस अंडरस्कोर इज मोर रिकमेंडेड। अंडरस्कोर इज मोर रिकमेंडेड। जनरली प्रोग्रामिंग में स्पेसेस को डिसअलाउ किया जाता है। डोंट यूज स्पेसेस while you are writing any programs, not recommended unless and until it is a string। जब तक वो स्ट्रिंग ना हो, वेरिएबल्स हो, फंक्शंस हो, उसमें स्पेसेस नहीं चलती जनरली। डोंट यूज इट। यस। एनी क्वेश्चंस इनटू द नेमिंग कन्वेंशन? नेमिंग कन्वेंशन रियली सिंपल, जो सामने दिख रहा है वही हम लोग यूज कर रहे हैं। इट इज नॉट समथिंग डिफरेंट, इट इज नॉट समथिंग यूनिक दैट वी आर ट्राइंग टू डू। सेम ही चीज है, बिकॉज दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी नीड टू राइट नाउ। इसको हमें लिखना है। आई वांट टू राइट अ प्रोग्राम, एंड व्हाइल राइटिंग द प्रोग्राम, व्हाई यू आर राइटिंग इट लाइक दिस, why capital over here, why small case over here? So that is what you must know. That's why I have told you that Java follows this naming convention strictly. No any questions? Then see this. Now whenever you want to create a program, please see this. I want to create a new project. So when you open the STS, the first thing that you need to do is you have to change the perspective. इसका perspective change करो. Perspective will be changed to Java. Click on this perspective, open perspective. यहाँ पे जाके Java को choose करो. Click on open and it will be opened up for you. Create a new Java project, and whenever you are going to create a new project, you just have to give a project name. So यहाँ पे देख सकते हो, the project names that I'm going to give is something called as demo01. As we talked about, we are going to choose the Java 1.8 over here. अब Java 11 भी रख सकते हो, no problem, but I do recommend Java 1.8 because the methods that are being deprecated after Java 8, or we could say after Java 9, those won't be available directly if you're selecting Java SE 11. So it's better you go for 1.8. Click on finish, and yes, the project is going to be created for you. Let it create the project. Yes. Once the project is created, go into the SRC and you have to create a particular class now. I'm saying आपको क्या create करना है? आपको class create करना है. So say new. This is going to be a class. Class के लिए कौन सा naming convention use करना है? हमें Pascal case use करना है. So while creating the class, again we are not right now focusing on the package. Package के ऊपर हम लोग focus नहीं कर रहे. So for a class, you have to say this is going to be the program. Program in the sense it is just a test class that I'm creating. In this program, I want to create a main, क्योंकि मुझे एक main create करना है. Click on finish, and what you will get is a main method inside the program class. So this is going to be the main method inside the program class. So I think I need to now upgrade this particular part. ठीक, I have got this. So इसके अंदर जो भी आपको लिखना है, maybe I want to say system.out.println hello world जो भी आपने लिखा था, so you can just mention it, you can just execute it, and this is going to be working fine. यहाँ पे अगर आप नोटिस करोगे, main again is a method or we could say function जिसका नेम देखो again is been started into the small case, क्योंकि एक ही वर्ड है, एक ही वर्ड होगा तो again the Java uses the camel case naming convention for the functions. This is where you can see this part. Not only that, अगर आप यहाँ पे भी चेक करोगे, these are the parameters of the function. For the parameters also, it is again using the camel case naming convention. यानी कि naming convention Java यहाँ पे use करता ही है. This println is a method. Again, this is a function. You can find it out everything into the small case. Println, it's an entire single word. System again class with S capital. Everywhere you can find out those naming conventions. Now, in this particular program that I have created, or the demo one that I have created, I don't want this hello world. ये already test हो चुका है. What I want to create are the variables. मुझे यहाँ पे जो create करना है वो है variables. Can you tell me what is a variable? क्या बता सकते हो? जैसे आपने C सीरियल से सीखा है तो आपको पता होगा what is a variable. Variable क्या होता है? Can anybody tell me? Yes, expecting some answers. Identifiers, okay. Any other answers that I can expect? What is a variable? To get values from user, declare value, okay. Store memory, used to store value, fine. See, whenever you talk about a variable, you can say that it is a container that is used to store the data. Variable क्या होता है? Variable एक container होता है. It is a container where you can store the data. So for example, मुझे 10 को store करना है. अब 10 क्या है? 10 एक type of data है. अब वो कौन से टाइप ऑफ डेटा है? सो आई कुड से इट इज अ नंबर टाइप ऑफ डेटा. लेट्स से मेरे पास एक और डेटा है. सो डेटा इज समथिंग लाइक ओनली दिस ए. अब ये ए क्या है? दिस ए इज नथिंग बट अ सिंगल कैरेक्टर. मेरे पास फिर से डेटा है. डेटा इज समथिंग लाइक दिस रोहन. अब मुझे इस रोहन को स्टोर करना है. वेयर डू आई स्टोर इट? अब रोहन को स्टोर करना है एक वेरिएबल के अंदर, एक कंटेनर के अंदर स्टोर करना है. लेकिन ये कौन से टाइप का है? मे बी आई कुड से इट इज एन एंटायर स्ट्रिंग दैट वी हैव, और जनरली यू कुड से इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ वर्ड. हमारे पास एक कैरेक्टर भी है, हमारे पास एक वर्ड भी है. मे बी आगे जाकर के हमारे पास एक सेंटेंस भी हो सकता है. सो मे बी आई कुड से sunbeam infotic. Again I have a data and I'm going to say this is going to be sunbeam infotic. अब ये क्या बना? ये बना एक सेंटेंस. पूरा सेंटेंस नहीं है, बट yes you can assume that this is going to be a sentence. Or maybe I could say sunbeam infotic private limited, like this. So you can observe that I have different types of data, and this data I want to store. Now where I can store it? Now to store it I require some amount of memory. Now let's say to get that particular memory you are allocating a particular block into the memory. So maybe I can create a block over here like this. This is a block that you have created into the memory, and in this memory you have kept this value as 10. ये जो मेमोरी ब्लॉक आपने एलोकेट किया है, सो लेट्स से उसका एड्रेस जो है इट इज गोइंग टू बी समथिंग लाइक दिस 200, और मे बी आई कुड से 0x200. दैट्स द एड्रेस ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर मेमोरी. अब एक प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज के अंदर, इनटू अ प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेज, यू कैन नॉट एक्सेस दिस एड्रेस डायरेक्टली लाइक दिस. You cannot start using these particular numbers or these particular addresses into your programs. इसको आप यूज नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि आपको भी नहीं पता होगा कि what is the actual address. And even the addresses that you will be looking at, it is a complete, you could say, an entire big hexadecimal value that you will be getting. तो वो आप यूज करोगे कैसे प्रोग्राम के अंदर? नॉट पॉसिबल. So to make it simple, to make it more simplified, what we can do is we can assign a name to it. हम लोग ऐसे मेमोरी सेक्शंस को कुछ नेम्स असाइन कर सकते हैं. मे बी आई कैन से दिस इज गोइंग टू बी माई नंबर 1. Maybe let's say I want to store this particular A into a memory. So what you can create is you can create a memory over here like this, and you can assign something called as 0x. Maybe we could send address to it. So it is going to be 300, where you are keeping that A inside it. Instead of saying 0x300, instead of saying this address, what I can say is just simple. It has got a name to it. We will call it as a CH. CH stands for a character. CH, CH1, CH2, whatever you want, you can just give a name to it. So these names that you are giving to this particular memory sections or this particular block, a container that you are looking at is nothing but a kind of a variable that you are creating. इसे हम लोग जनरली कहते हैं एक वेरिएबल, कि which is used to store the data. अब उस वेरिएबल का नाम क्या होगा? उस वेरिएबल का आइडेंटिफायर क्या होगा? वो वेरिएबल किस नाम से यूज किया जाएगा? सो दैट्स द नेम दैट वी आर यूजिंग. Variable is nothing but a particular memory that you are allocating inside the memory that you are allocating inside the sections, whether it is going to be a stack section, data section, heap section. वहां पे जो भी kind of memory आप allocate करो, 1 bytes, 2 bytes, 3 bytes, 4 bytes, that container is your variable. और उस variable का नाम क्या है? What is the name to that variable? So whatever the name that you are giving, the identifiers that you are giving is the name to that variable. That's a variable generally. अब ये पता होना क्यों जरूरी है? बिकॉज इन जावा यू विल बी क्रिएटिंग द वेरिएबल्स, क्योंकि जावा में आप वेरिएबल से क्रिएट करोगे. फंक्शंस के अंदर क्रिएट करोगे तो वो बनेंगे आपके लोकल वेरिएबल्स. इफ यू क्रिएट इट विद इन द फंक्शंस, इट विल बी अ लोकल वेरिएबल. इफ यू क्रिएट इट इनसाइड द क्लास, इट विल बिकम द फील्ड्स. वो फील्ड्स बनेंगे. इफ यू क्रिएट अ वेरिएबल ऑफ अ क्लास, इट बिकम्स एन ऑब्जेक्ट. यानी कि जावा में आपको बनाना तो वेरिएबल ही है. यू हैव टू क्रिएट अ वेरिएबल, बस उसको बना कहां पे रहे हो और किसका बना रहे हो. वेदर यू आर क्रिएटिंग इट ऑफ अ क्लास और यू आर क्रिएटिंग इट ऑफ अ प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स, डिपेंडिंग ऑन यू विल बी नेमिंग इट इन अ बिट डिफरेंट वे. यानी कि उसके बस टर्म्स जावा ने यहाँ पे अलग अलग दे के रखे. सो फर्स्ट यू मस्ट बी नोइंग व्हाट इज अ वेरिएबल. वेरिएबल मुझे पता है व्हाट इज वेरिएबल. इट इज जस्ट यूज्ड टू स्टोर द डेटा सो इनटू अ मेमोरी. सो व्हाटएवर द वेरिएबल इज बीन क्रिएटेड, उसका जो नाम, द आइडेंटिफायर दैट वी गिव is something that we use to access it into our programs. तो हमारे programs में हम लोग उसका नाम, उसका identifier use करते हैं to access it. The variables can be created into the functions locally, into the class as a field, or even you can create the variables of a class generally called as objects. तो वो भी हम लोग यहाँ पे create कर सकते हैं. That's what generally a variable is. Now whenever you create a variable, whenever you say कि सर हमें ये 2 बाइट्स 4 बाइट्स 8 बाइट्स ऐसे एलोकेट करना है, how do you tell this particular, let's say the compiler, or how you tell this operating system कि मुझे इतनी ही मेमोरी एलोकेट करो. जैसे सपोज आई वांट टू स्टोर दिस नंबर, मुझे ये नंबर को स्टोर करना है, मे बी आई वांट टू स्टोर दिस 10, मे बी आई वांट टू स्टोर दिस कैरेक्टर एज अ ए. If I want to store this, how do you tell the particular compiler, how do you tell the operating system कि इतनी मेमोरी एलोकेट करो? ये बताओगे कैसे? सो सपोज आई वांट दिस नंबर, क्या सिर्फ नंबर कहने से उसको पता चल जाएगा कि मुझे लेट्स से मेमोरी के अंदर 4 बाइट्स चाहिए या फिर 2 बाइट चाहिए? इज इट गोइंग टू नो डायरेक्टली कि लाइक नंबर कहोगे तो चलो 8 बाइट्स या फिर 4 बाइट्स एलोकेट करो. इफ आई से इट लाइक दिस ch तो सिर्फ 1 बाइट एलोकेट करो. इज इट गोइंग टू नो ऑन इट्स ओन? सुनो, ऐसा नहीं होता. You have to tell it explicitly while creating the variable that how much memory you need to allocate. यानी कि एक कंटेनर जब आप बनाओगे, whenever you are going to create this container, you have to tell the compiler that how much memory you want to allocate. यानी कि कितनी मेमोरी, 2 बाइट्स 4 बाइट्स 8 बाइट्स कितनी एलोकेट करना है ये बताओगे. कैसे बताओगे? So to tell them what you have to use is something called as data types. Very good. तो ये बताओगे कैसे? उसके लिए आपको यूज करना पड़ता है डेटा टाइप्स. अब ये डेटा टाइप्स भी आपने सुना होगा. कैन यू टेल मी व्हाट इज अ डेटा टाइप? हाउ यू विल डिफाइन व्हाट इज अ डेटा टाइप? वेरिएबल तो चलो डिफाइन कर लिया, लेकिन व्हाट इज अ डेटा टाइप? फंडामेंटल्स एंड बेसिक्स रियली शुड बी स्ट्रांग. ये काफी स्ट्रांग होनी चाहिए, अदरवाइज इट डजंट मेक सेंस इन वर्किंग विद लैंग्वेजेस. यस, इन कैर वो मुझे भी पता है. But how you will define a data type? See, you have to give the interviews as well. How you will define a data type? If someone asks you, what do you know about a data type? How you will define a data type? How you are going to explain the data type? Generally, data type explain करना भी काफी challenging होता है. How you will explain it? Data type is a keyword. Is data type a keyword? Yes. Hmm? Yes. That's what I was saying. So how you will define a data type? How you will define a data type? Hmm. Amount of, चलो ठीक है. I will say it like this. Whenever you talk about data type, it defines 3 things. Whenever you talk about a data type, it defines 3 things. First is the nature. Second one is the memory. And the third one is the operations. जब भी आप डेटा टाइप की बात करोगे तो डेटा टाइप जनरली 3 चीजों के बारे में बात करता है. First, nature, memory, and operations. So what they have to define, how you will talk about a data type. So say, whenever you talk about data type, it talks about first of all is the nature of the data. Nature in the sense, what type of data do you want to store? Whether the data is of type number, whether the data is a single character, whether the data is of word type, whether the data is a sentence, whether the data is a fractional value. यानी कि वो जनरली कौन से टाइप का डेटा है, दैट इज व्हाट द नेचर फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल डिफाइंस. यानी कि कौन से टाइप का डेटा आप स्टोर करना चाहते हो. न्यूमेरिक डेटा है, इज इट अ एंटायर सेंटेंस, इज इट अ सिंगल कैरेक्टर, इज इट अ वर्ड और इज इट अ फ्रैक्शनल पार्ट? कौन से टाइप ऑफ डेटा है, फर्स्ट. सेकेंड, to store that particular data, whether it is going to be a number, character, word or a sentence, to store this data, what amount of memory do you require? आपको कितनी मेमोरी चाहिए? तो लेट्स से अगर आपको एक नंबर स्टोर करना है, इफ यू वांट टू स्टोर अ नंबर, you first of all decide how much memory do you require. So maybe I am going to say to store a number I require around 4 bytes into the memory. ये मैंने डिसाइड किया. The one who is giving this data type, the one who is developing this language. तो हम लोग डेवलप करते वक्त हमने कहा that if the data is of type number, यानी कि if the nature is of type number, then for this generally 4 bytes should be allocated. If the particular, let's say, nature is of type character, if it is a single character, the memory that needs to be allocated is going to be of 1 byte or 2 bytes, depending on the character encoding that you will be using. Similarly, if it is going to be a string, then you must be allocating the memory dynamically. It is your choice, whatever the amount of or we could say memory that you want to allocate it into the sections. So the second part memory talks about amount of memory required to store that data. So अब हमें नेचर पता है, नेचर इन द सेंस व्हाट टाइप ऑफ डेटा दैट वी हैव गॉट. सेकंड, वी नो दैट हाउ मच मेमोरी इज बीन रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द डेटा, ये भी पता है. एंड द थर्ड थिंग द डेटा टाइप टॉक्स अबाउट इज द ऑपरेशंस दैट वी कैन कैरी आउट ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर डेटा. जैसे अगर न्यूमरिक डेटा होगा, सो वी कैन कैरी आउट ऑल द अरिथमेटिक ऑपरेशंस ऑन टू इट. अगर वो कोई कैरेक्टर या फिर स्ट्रिंग टाइप ऑफ डेटा होगा, तो मे बी कॉन्केटिनेशन टाइप ऑफ या फिर सबस्ट्रिंग टाइप ऑफ ऑपरेशंस आई कैन कैरी आउट ऑन दोस पर्टिकुलर लेट्स से वर्ड्स और सेंटेंसेस. यानी कि डिपेंडिंग ऑन द नेचर ऑफ डेटा वी कैन इवन प्रिडिक्ट व्हाट टाइप ऑफ ऑपरेशंस वी कैन परफॉर्म ऑन इट. एंड दिस इज व्हाट द डेटा टाइप हैज टू प्रोवाइड यू एज द इंफॉर्मेशन. सो ये डेटा टाइप एज ए इंफॉर्मेशन आपको वो देता है. सो इट प्रोवाइड्स थ्री इंफॉर्मेशन फॉर यू. What a type of data I can store inside it. Second, the memory it has occupied into the let's say sections. And the third, that what type of operations you can carry out on it. And this is how the data types have been defined. For example, you know the data type as int. जब तक मैंने आपको डेटा टाइप डिफाइन भी यानी कि इसका डेफिनेशन भी नहीं बताया था, आई हैवंट एक्सप्लेन एनीथिंग. बट इफ आई से इंट, यू कुड हैव आंसर्ड मी थ्री थिंग्स. आपने इमीडिएटली मुझे तीन आंसर्स दिए रहेंगे कि अगर मैं इंट कहता तो यू माइट हैव सेड, sir, if you are writing this int, that means you can store an integer type of, a numeric type of, and whole numbers inside it. Second, for that particular number you have allocated 4 bytes into the memory. And third, you might have said, sir, we can perform all the arithmetic operations on that particular number. So without knowing the definition also, you are telling all this information. That's what a data type has to define. यही तीन चीज data types आपको define करके देता है. So whenever you talk about a data type, you must say a data type defines three things: nature, memory, and operation. That means what I understand by a data type are these three things. मुझे तीन चीजें data type से पता चलती है. That's what a data type is first of all. Now, when you come in Java, if you are in Java, when you talk about this data type, so these data types are categorized into two types. So the first one is called as the primitive types. Primitive types, also called as value types, and the second one are called as the reference types, or we could say first of all non-primitive types. Non-primitive types, maybe into the bracket we will call it as the reference types. Reference types. So there are two types of data types. One is called as the primitive types, another is called as the non-primitive types. This is with respect to Java. अब हम लोग जावा के पास आ चुके हैं. सो जावा हैज टू टाइप्स, और वी कुड से टू कैटेगरीज ऑफ डेटा टाइप्स, प्रिमिटिव एंड नॉन प्रिमिटिव. प्रिमिटिव को ही वैल्यू टाइप्स भी कहा जाता है, नॉन प्रिमिटिव को ही लेट्स से रेफरेंस टाइप्स भी कहा जाता है. व्हिच आर द प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स? सो इनटू द प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स इट हैज गॉट द सब कैटेगरीज. प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स के अंदर उसके पास कुछ सब कैटेगरीज. पहला है जिसे कहा जाता है लेट्स से बूलियन. दिस इज द फर्स्ट कैटेगरी. सेकेंड वन वी हैव व्हिच इज कॉल्ड एज द कैरेक्टर. Third one we have, it is called as the integral. It's called as the integral. The fourth type that we have is called as the floating point. Is called as the floating point. So boolean, character, integral, and a floating point, these are the categories that we have for the primitive types. In every single category it has a data type. So boolean के अंदर उसके पास एक data type है जिसका नाम है boolean. नाम ही है उस पर्टिकुलर डेटा टाइप का बूलियन. कैरेक्टर के अंदर जाओगे वी हैव द डेटा टाइप कॉल्ड एज द कैर. अगर आप इंटीग्रल में जाओगे वी हैव द डेटा टाइप्स. नाउ लिसन टू दिस. वी हैव द डेटा टाइप्स व्हिच स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम बाइट, शॉर्ट, इन, लॉन्ग. सी द टाइप्स दैट वी हैव इनसाइड द इंटीग्रल. हमारे पास बाइट है, हमारे पास शॉर्ट है, हमारे पास इंटीजर है, हमारे पास लॉन्ग भी है. सी दीज आर द डेटा टाइप्स. Now you might have studied something in C++ called as type qualifiers and type modifiers. आपके पास कुछ type qualifiers होते हैं, कुछ type modifiers होते हैं. इनमें से दो आपने as a type modifiers you might have seen in C and C++. But here in Java those are the data types actually. यहाँ पे वो as a data types है. These are not the modifiers नाम in Java. ये data types है. Floating point में आओगे we have something called as float and we have something called as double. These are what the primitive types of data types that we have in Java. ये हमारे primitive types of data types हैं. कीवर्ड्स आर द रिजर्व्ड वर्ड्स. कीवर्ड्स जो होते हैं वो रिजर्व्ड वर्ड्स होते हैं. डेटा टाइप्स हैज सम स्पेशल मीनिंग टू इट. स्पेशल मीनिंग, जैसे कीवर्ड्स के पास कुछ स्पेशल मीनिंग होता है. कीवर्ड देखो, जैसे मेन मेरा कीवर्ड बना, यहाँ पे इंट मेरा कीवर्ड भी है, बुलियन मेरा कीवर्ड भी है, कैरेक्टर इज ऑल्सो माई कीवर्ड. बट कीवर्ड के साथ साथ दे आर ऑल्सो सम काइंड ऑफ डेटा टाइप्स, यानी कि उन कीवर्ड्स को एक स्पेशल कैटेगरी के अंदर रखा गया है. एक स्पेशल कैटेगरी के अंदर रखा गया है. जैसे क्लास अगर कहोगे तो क्लास क्या बनेगा? ऑब्वियस बात है, वो एक नॉन प्रिमिटिव, यानी कि वो भी क्या बनेगा, काइंड ऑफ अ यूजर डिफाइंड डेटा टाइप, यानी कि उसकी कैटेगरी उन्होंने अलग बना के रखे इनटू द प्रोग्रामिंग लैंग्वेजेस. All the reserved words that you cannot use for the general programming, यानी कि to define your own variables, are generally considered as keywords. All the reserved words I'm saying, तो उनको keywords ही कहा जाता है. Fine. So these are all kind of the primitive data types. Primitive data types के अंदर we have the four categories: Boolean, character, integral, and floating point. In this particular, is my video being stopped? Why? हाँ. Into this particular, let's say primitive types, we have the four category: Boolean, character, integral, and floating point. Boolean stands for, let's say, Boolean के अंदर we have two values generally, true and false. कैरेक्टर के अंदर you can start storing the characters. इंटीग्रल के अंदर न्यूमेरिक टाइप ऑफ डेटा, नंबर्स जो आप इसके अंदर रख सकते हो. एंड फ्लोटिंग पॉइंट के अंदर फ्रैक्शनल वैल्यूज, यानी कि डेसिमल प्लेसेस के साथ you can start storing the data inside it. In Java specifically, now listen to this. This is really important. In Java, all the sizes for these data types are fixed. As in C and C++, we talk about that depending on the type of compiler that you are using, whether the operating system, compiler के साथ साथ even the operating system that you are using, whether it is a 32-bit or 64-bit, उसके ऊपर depend करेगा the memory. It is not like that in Java. Inside Java, all the sizes for these data types are fixed. So if you talk about Boolean, which can store only true or false, जो कि ट्रू और फॉल्स को स्टोर करता है, जनरली टेक्स 1 bit इन द मेमोरी. 1 bit आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट 1 byte. 1 byte नहीं, 1 bit, सिर्फ 0 और 1, ट्रू और फॉल्स. ओनली दिस वैल्यूज यू कैन स्टोर इट इनसाइड द बुलियन. इसके अलावा आप नंबर्स को भी स्टोर नहीं कर सकते. यू कैन नॉट इवन स्टोर 1 और 2. यू हैव टू कंपल्सरी स्टोर ट्रू और फॉल्स. ऐसे दिस इज द आंसर टू द क्वेश्चन. ट्रू एंड फॉल्स, अगेन दीज आर द कीवर्ड्स, रिजर्व्ड वर्ड्स दैट आर बीन केप्ट इन जावा. तो ट्रू और फॉल्स सिर्फ इतना ही रख सकते हो बुलियन के अंदर, अदरवाइज नथिंग इज अलाउड. नो एनी वैल्यू, नो एनी 10, 20, 30 कुछ नहीं रख सकते. नॉट अलाउड बुलियन के अंदर, बिकॉज इट टेक्स 1 bit इनटू द मेमोरी. इफ यू टॉक अबाउट कैरेक्टर इन जावा, इट टेक्स अराउंड 2 bytes इनटू द मेमोरी, बिकॉज इट सपोर्ट्स यूनिकोड कैरेक्टर एनकोडिंग स्कीम. जनरली जावा ASCII एनकोडिंग स्कीम को सपोर्ट नहीं करता. इट सपोर्ट्स द यूनिकोड एनकोडिंग स्कीम, एंड दैट इज व्हाई इट टेक्स अराउंड 2 bytes इनटू द मेमोरी. If you talk about integral, integrals के अंदर we have the byte, short, int and long. Byte जो है, it takes around 1 byte into the memory. नाम से ही पता चल रहा है, it takes around 1 byte into the memory. If you talk about short, it takes around 2 bytes into the memory. 2 bytes into the memory. If you talk about integer, it takes 4 bytes into the memory. And if you talk about long, it takes around 8 bytes into the memory, which is used to store the numbers inside. Not only that, if you go for the floating point, यानी कि डेसिमल वैल्यूज के साथ आपको स्टोर करना है, so we have a float which takes around 4 bytes into the memory, and for the double, again it takes around 8 bytes into the memory. Memories are fixed, so ये change नहीं होगा. This is not going to be changed. These values are fixed. ये fixed ही है. These all are called as the primitive data types. Similarly, we have something called as non-primitive data types. Now, non-primitive data types, you can also say it are the user-defined types. So, which are the non-primitive data types that we have? So, we have class, we have interface, we have, let's say, enum, and finally, what we have is an array. So, non-primitives के अंदर we have 4 types. First, you can create the class, you can create an interface, you can create an enum, and even you can create an array. Array is a reference type in Java. ये एक नई चीज है यहाँ पे. Array is a reference type in Java. वो नॉन प्रिमिटिव क्यों है, वो कैसे काम करता है, that we have a separate section maybe on day 4 or day 5 when we are going to start with the concept of arrays in Java. We will talk about why array is a reference type. तो वो reference type क्यों है, वो काम कैसे करता है, that we'll be discussing. But yes, today you get to know that array is a reference type. So these 4 are all called as a non-primitive types. So let me know any questions into the primitive types and non-primitive types. Get it revised. Value types, primitive types. Primitive types को ही value types कहा जाता है, non-primitives को ही reference type भी कहा जाता है. So these terms I will be using in interchanging order. Maybe sometimes I will call it as a reference. Maybe sometime I will call it as a non-primitive. Both are going to be the same thing. इन्हीं के नाम नॉन प्रिमिटिव भी कहा जाता है, रेफरेंस भी कहा जाता है. इन्हीं को वैल्यू टाइप या प्रिमिटिव टाइप भी कहा जाता है. Maybe I will be while speaking I will be saying कि this is a primitive type, this is a reference type. वो non primitive को इससे better I will call it as a reference type. To understand that these are the default types, we are going to call it as a primitive types. तो ऐसे words में आप terms आगे मैं use करने वाला हूँ. I'm going to use these terms into our next sessions. Let me know if you have any questions so far, primitive and non primitives. Any questions so far? Okay, fine. Enum थोड़ा बहुत I could say 10% it is same, but enum in Java is really different. उसका पर्पस भी कंप्लीटली अलग है एज कंपेयर टू द enums in C and C++. कंप्लीटली अलग है. सो 10% सिमिलर बट 90% डिफरेंट आई कुड से. हाँ, बेसिक enum पता होगा तो यू कैन जस्ट रिलेट इट अ बिट एंड यू कैन जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड द वर्किंग, बट टोटली डिफरेंट. एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस? डोंट वरी अबाउट व्हाट इज इंटरफेस, व्हाट इज क्लास, enum, array. सर पहली बार देख रहे, डू नॉट वरी. Maybe you might have heard about array, maybe somewhere you might have heard about class and enum. That is completely fine. Those things that you don't know, don't worry, I'm here, we are going to talk about it. इसके बारे में बात वैसे भी करते हैं हमारे. आज तो डे 2 है ना, इट इज जस्ट लैंग्वेज फंडामेंटल्स पर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. फाइन. ठीक. Now what we have understood is we have got the information about the data types. We have got the information about, let's say, the naming conventions. We have got to know what are primitives, what are non-primitives, and we have got to know what is a variable. अब इन सभी चीजों को यूज करते हुए आई वांट टू क्रिएट समथिंग ओवर हियर. देखो अब तक जितना भी हम लोगों ने सीखा है, वट एवर वी हैव लर्न सो फार, मे बी लास्ट आई कुड से 40 मिनट्स वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट. अब इन्हीं को मुझे यूज करना है एंड आई वांट टू क्रिएट समथिंग ओवर हियर. And based on that we are going to discuss now, and what I'm going to create is something called as a class. Now see how many concepts are going to be used when you create a class over. So let us understand first of all what is a class. पहले समझते हैं कि class क्या होता है. So first of all, if you look at this class, class क्या है? It is a non-primitive type in Java, यानी कि it is a reference type in Java. Whenever you talk about class, class is called as a logical entity. लॉजिकल ही क्यों कहा जाता है, इसका एक्सप्लेनेशन मे बी आफ्टर द ऑब्जेक्ट व्हेन वी आर गोइंग टू सी दोस डायग्राम्स वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस दिस. बट फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल गेट द डेफिनेशंस. क्लास इज अ लॉजिकल एंटिटी. क्लास इज अ लॉजिकल एंटिटी. क्लास consists of fields and methods. Listen to the terms once again. It consists of fields and methods. क्लास एक लॉजिकल एंटिटी है जिसके अंदर फील्ड्स और मेथड्स होते हैं. दिस क्लास वी ऑल्सो कॉल इट एज द ब्लूप्रिंट ऑफ एन ऑब्जेक्ट. इट इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड एज ब्लूप्रिंट ऑफ एन ऑब्जेक्ट. अब क्लास लॉजिकल एंटिटी कंसिस्ट ऑफ फील्ड्स एंड मेथड्स. इट इज ऑल्सो ब्लूप्रिंट ऑफ एन ऑब्जेक्ट. मतलब क्या? लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड दिस विद एन एग्जांपल ओवर हियर. एक एग्जांपल यहां पे बना. What I want to create is a simple class. मुझे क्लास क्रिएट करना है. How do you create a class? You say class. Class क्रिएट करने के लिए you have to use the keyword called as a class. Once again, keyword class which we have to use. This class is nothing but a reference type, a non-primitive type in Java, a user-defined type generally. आप कैसे? Now, which class do you want to create? जो भी class आपको create करना है, you can just create it. Maybe I want to say I want to create a class called as a time. मैं क्लास क्रिएट कर रहा हूं. क्लास का नाम है टाइम. यू कैन गिव एनी नेम टू इट. यू कैन चेक दिस आउट कि whenever I am giving a name to the class, I am starting it with the capital T. That means I am using a Pascal case naming convention. See, द वेरी फर्स्ट थिंग दैट वी स्टार्ट अबाउट इज विद द नेमिंग कन्वेंशन, यानी कि क्लास क्रिएट करते वक्त ही वी आर यूजिंग द नेमिंग कन्वेंशन। नॉट ओनली दैट, क्लास क्रिएट करने के लिए मुझे ये पता होना चाहिए दैट इट इज गोइंग टू बी द नॉन प्रिमिटिव टाइप, जहां पे मुझे ये कीवर्ड यूज करना पड़ेगा कॉल्ड एज अ क्लास। दो चीजें ऑलरेडी यूज हो चुकी। नाउ इनसाइड दिस क्लास व्हाट डू यू वांट टू राइट, क्लास के अंदर में क्या लिखूं? सो इनसाइड दिस क्लास यू कैन डिक्लेयर द वेरिएबल्स। आप क्या कर सकते हो, आप वेरिएबल्स को डिक्लेयर कर सकते हो। जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल आई एम गोइंग टू से दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द आवर एंड दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द मिनट्स, यानी कि व्हाट यू आर क्रिएटिंग इज यू आर क्रिएटिंग अ पर्टिकुलर टाइम क्लास which is going to have the hours and minutes that are going to be stored inside it. एक ऐसा क्लास, एक ऐसा kind of a particular data type that I'm creating which can store the hours and minutes within itself, जो hours और minutes को उसके अंदर store करके रख सकता है। So can I say this is a variable? क्योंकि आप वेरिएबल डिक्लेयर कैसे करते हो? यू हैव एन आइडेंटिफायर, और आइडेंटिफायर से पहले आप डेटा टाइप को यूज करते हो। सो दिस इज द वे यू आर डिक्लेयरिंग द वेरिएबल्स। सो इफ यू डिक्लेयर द वेरिएबल्स इनसाइड द क्लास, अगर आप वेरिएबल्स को क्लास के अंदर ऐसे डिक्लेयर करोगे, देन दीज आर कॉल्ड एज द फील्ड्स ऑफ द क्लास। इन्हें हम लोग कहते हैं फील्ड्स। सो व्हाट आर फील्ड्स ऑफ अ क्लास? नथिंग बट द वेरिएबल्स दैट आर डिक्लेयर्ड विद इन द क्लास। जो वेरिएबल्स क्लास के अंदर डिक्लेयर होंगे यू कॉल देम एज फील्ड्स। खत्म, as simple as that. Now what do you want with these particular fields? इनके साथ क्या करना चाहते हो? Maybe I want to accept them, so maybe I'm going to say public, और public वगैरह हम लोग बाद में लिखेंगे। Maybe I'm going to say void accept, maybe I want to accept the time, and maybe what I want to do is I want to display the time। मुझे दो चीजें करनी। What I want to do is I want to just accept the time, I just want to display the time, I want to take the time, we could say input from user, and I just want to display whatever the time that I have stored inside it। तो ये काम मुझे यहाँ पे करना है। Maybe I'm going to say it like this, right now there is no logic inside it, अभी फिलहाल यहाँ पे कुछ logic नहीं है। Maybe I'm going to say inside accept, यहाँ पे लिख देता हूँ like this, and maybe यहाँ पे मैं लिख देता हूँ system.out.println, this is going to be the display time, like this, as simple as that। So I want to accept the time, I want to display the time। ये जो भी functions आपने लिखे हैं, whatever the functions that you have written inside this particular class, we call them as methods। इन्हें हम लोग क्या कहते हैं? इन्हें हम लोग कहते हैं methods। So when I wrote this particular statement, जब मैंने statement लिखा that it consists of fields and methods, that means it consists of the variables and the functions। So whatever the variables that you declare inside the class, we will call it as fields, whatever the functions that you declare within the class, we will call it as methods, and that is why we say class consists of fields and methods। First, is the class clear to you? What is a class? Class is a logical entity। ये हम लोगों ने क्रिएट किया आपके सामने। Let me know, let me know any questions so far? Method, it is a function। functions पता है, I can expect that you know the functions। just a function inside a class is called as a method। maybe मैं यहाँ पे लिख देता हूँ comment, a function defined inside a class is called as a method। that's a method for you। यानी कि उसका नाम है, आप फंक्शन नहीं कहोगे, आप मेथड कहोगे। दैट इज व्हाट यू विल बी कॉलिंग। जैसे आजकल एक ट्रेंड है, सो आई कुड से दैट, so now people don't see, like suppose if you have done something good to the other and if someone is happy for you, maybe you tip someone, so now those people don't say thank you, those say appreciate that। so it is a new thing, I could say now people are using that। it is the same thing java says कि आप उसको फंक्शन मत कहो, उसे बुरा लगता है। it says कि मुझे मेथड कहो, it's the same thing। don't say thank you, say appreciate it, it's the same thing actually। yes, any other questions? I'm waiting for the questions। correct। so those people who are coming from C++, they might have said that these are called as data members and these are called as member functions. तो अब फिर से थोड़ा सा लॉजिक लगा. Within C++ or in C++ also, if you declare the variables inside the class, you call it as a data member. If you declare a function inside a class, you call it as a member function. तो C++ का कहने का तरीका है data members and member functions. Java का कहने का तरीका है fields and methods. It is a way the programming language has to say. So these are the terminologies that the programming language uses. हाँ, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है if you call it as a function. कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता है if you call it as a member function. Even into the interview also, while explaining it to the particular, let's say, interviewer, even if you say कि okay, there is a function inside my class and I'm going to call that function, it doesn't matter. तो वो वैसे बुरा नहीं लगाएगा अपने आप को. So he's not going to feel bad or he's not going to say anything to you why you are calling this as a function, why you are not calling it as a method. ऐसा नहीं होगा. But these are the terms that the programming language uses. तो ये technical terms है जो programming language use करता है. So if you use these technical terms, it is good. But if you are coming from a different background and right now to be comfortable with those technical terms, अगर आप कुछ अलग भी उसको कह रहे हो तो completely चलेगा, no problem. But you must know that. I'm not asking about fields and methods. I'm asking about is the class first of all clear to you. So for those who are learning this class for the very first time, यानी कि जो क्लास पहली बार कोई अगर देख रहा होगा, so is it clear that what we have inside a class? We have the fields that are the variables that are declared, and we have the methods are nothing but the functions that we have used inside. Yes, is it clear? So now what you will do by creating this class? ये class create करने के बाद आप क्या करोगे? मतलब क्या ऐसे ही छोड़ दोगे? Are you going to leave it like this? No. You are creating the classes so that you can start using it. Java has created the classes so that you can use it. Java के पास इतने सारे classes, so many classes. Why it is creating so many classes? So that you can start using it. Now, how do I use those classes? So to use those classes, to use the behavior, you have to create an object of it. आपको यहाँ पे उसका object create करना होगा. What we need to create is called as the object. Let me say object. What is the object? So object, I will say it is a physical entity. It is a physical entity. Why it is a sorry, how it is a physical entity इसका explanation मैं आपको देने वाला हूँ. So I'm going to draw a diagram over here and I'm going to show you how it is a physical entity and why it is a physical entity. वैसा क्यों है? Second, it is, or I could say, also called as instance of a class. It is also called as an instance of a class. अब exactly object होता क्या है? What happens when we create the object? How it gets created? Now let us start discussing it. Not only that, along with this, I want to discuss one more thing that is nothing but the reference. अब देखो discussion हमारा कहाँ पे जा रहा है? What we have used till here is a class, non-primitive data type, naming conventions. We have created the variables. We have taken those particular data types, primitive data types over here. We have defined those functions और एक पूरा class यहाँ पे बना के रख दिया. Now out of this class, what I want to create is an object over here. Now see how you create the object in Java. First of all, see how you create the object in Java. To create the object in Java, you are going to say the name of the class, that is time, the name of a variable. Listen to this, what I'm saying. So what I'm creating is a variable of a class. You see, what is this T? T or T1? ये T और T1 ये क्या है? ये बना आपका आइडेंटिफायर. दिस इज आइडेंटिफायर. आइडेंटिफायर से पहले अगर आप डेटा टाइप यूज करोगे, विच डेटा टाइप? तो प्रिमिटिव और नॉन प्रिमिटिव, सो इट इज अ नॉन प्रिमिटिव डेटा टाइप. अब प्रिमिटिव डेटा टाइप नहीं है. सो इफ आई से इट लाइक दिस, इफ आई से इंट T1 और इफ आई से इंट N1, व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू से, ये बनेगा आपका प्रिमिटिव टाइप ऑफ डेटा टाइप, इंटीजर, और ये N1 आइडेंटिफायर बना ये वेरिएबल. सो इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ वेरिएबल. Similarly, instead of this primitive type, what if I use the class? Class, कौन सा class? It is going to be the time class. And instead of N1, I am going to say T1. As simple as this. So again, this T1 is the identifier. T1 से पहले this time is going to be the user defined type. तो ये क्या बना? ये बना एक variable सबसे पहले. ये बना एक वेरिएबल. द वेरिएबल ऑफ अ क्लास is called as a reference in Java. The variable of a class is called as a reference in Java. Not only variable of a class, but a variable of a non-primitive type is called as a reference in Java. And that is why it is considered as a reference types. Java में इनको reference types क्यों कहा गया है? Because any variable that you create of these particular non-primitive types are called as references. इन्हें Java में कहा जाता है references. Now, what do references store? References stores the object inside. References के अंदर क्या स्टोर किया जाता है? Objects को स्टोर किया जाता है. How do you create the object in Java? तो Java में object create किया जाता है by using the new keyword. आपको यहाँ पे new keyword यूज करना पड़ेगा. New, क्या new? Which object do you want to create? So I want to create the object called as a time. This is how you create the object in Java. अब ये जो ऑब्जेक्ट बनेगा, वेयर डू यू वांट टू कीप इट, इसको कहीं पे तो स्टोर करना पड़ेगा. वेयर डू यू वांट टू स्टोर इट? सो यू वांट टू स्टोर इट इनसाइड द टेबल. यानी कि इस रेफरेंस के अंदर, बिकॉज रेफरेंसेस आर यूज्ड टू स्टोर द ऑब्जेक्ट्स. रेफरेंसेस को यूज किया जाता है ऑब्जेक्ट्स को स्टोर करने के लिए. ऑब्जेक्ट्स बनता है न्यू से. ऑब्जेक्ट्स आर क्रिएटेड यूजिंग न्यू एंड अ वेरिएबल दैट यू क्रिएट ऑफ अ क्लास. दिस इज हाउ यू क्रिएट द रेफरेंस एंड दिस इज द वे यू क्रिएट द ऑब्जेक्ट इन जावा. एक तो आप ऐसे भी लिख सकते हो ऑन द टू लाइंस, और इवन यू कैन से लाइक दिस, टाइम t2 इक्वल्स टू न्यू टाइम, ऐसा भी चलेगा. इट डिपेंड्स ऑन हाउ यू वांट टू क्रिएट. दैट्स इट. Let me know first of all, is the theoretically this reference and this particular part, is it clear to you? If this is clear, now we will talk about how it has been created into the memory. The memory में काम कैसे करता है, what happens and how it is being implemented. So we have to discuss that. Physical entity, logical entity, पूरा discussion करना है diagram से. New it is just a keyword that has to be used compulsory to create the object. यानी कि टाइम का ऑब्जेक्ट अगर आपको क्रिएट करना है, इफ यू वांट टू क्रिएट द ऑब्जेक्ट इन जावा, यू हैव टू कंपल्सरी यूज दिस सिंटैक्स. ये न्यू एक्चुअली आता है C++. सो इट इज एक्चुअली द पार्ट ऑफ C++ वेयर इट इज यूज्ड टू क्रिएट द ऑब्जेक्ट डायनामिकली. सो न्यू इज काइंड ऑफ एन ऑपरेटर इन C++. यहाँ पे भी वो सेम ही है. सो अगर पता है तो ठीक है, नहीं पता है तो दिस इज द सिंटैक्स फॉर यू. इसके बिना आपका ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट नहीं हो सकता. न्यू इट इज जस्ट वी कुड से अ कीवर्ड दैट नीड्स टू बी यूज्ड. जैसे आपको वेरिएबल से पहले इंट लिखना ही पड़ेगा. इंट क्या है? कीवर्ड है. विदाउट दिस इंट यू कैनॉट क्रिएट अ वेरिएबल. you cannot create a variable of a type of integer type. Without double you cannot create a variable of, let's say, floating types. Without, let's say, char, you cannot create a variable of character type. वैसे ही without new you cannot create the object of this particular non-primitive types. So new has to be used. Any other questions? न्यू डेटा, लेकिन डेटा कौन सा? विच डेटा? डेटा क्या है? देयर इज नथिंग कॉल्ड एज डेटा ओवर हियर. डेटा नाम का कोई भी क्लास ऐसा भी फिलहाल है नहीं यहाँ. सो यू कैन नॉट से दैट. ओके, एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस? नो, फाइन. देन नाउ सी दिस डायग्राम. अब डायग्राम को देखते हैं. रेफरेंस यहाँ पे लिखना मैं भूल गया. व्हाट इज द रेफरेंस? वेरिएबल ऑफ created of a non-primitive type is called as a reference. That's it. Variable created of a non-primitive type is called as a reference. That's it. So now let us understand how this entire thing is going to be stored. Where it is? वाओ, आई थॉट सो, ये क्रैश होने ही वाला था. So let me open that thing journal once again, the one that we are editing right now. So maybe where it is, or Java. I have stored it over here. So that's the journal. So double click on this. Is it been closed? Oh, I'm facing the problems for this time. I don't know why. Fine, it was expected. It's a free tool that generally I use, Journal plus plus. So somewhere down the line, it definitely crashes. क्योंकि free tool है, that's fine. And it is really smooth actually. It has got good features that I really need. So fine. What we are talking about is we are talking about the class and object, and now I need to understand that how the memory has been allocated. So before starting drawing this particular diagram or before starting creating those particular sections, I hope you know this part: a stack section, a data section, and a heap section. Do you know these parts? क्या ये parts आपको पता है पहले से? Stack, heap, and data. So those who are coming from the previous, we could say, languages, like whether you are coming from C or C++, doesn't matter. Do you know this part? Stack, heap, and data. I'm expecting some answers. अगर आपको पता है yes कहो, नहीं पता है no कहो, so that we can talk about it. सिर्फ चेतन ने आंसर दिया. What about others? अरे yes or no? How I'm going to judge? How I'm going to start then? How I'm going to explain it? क्योंकि मेरा explanation उस हिसाब से जाएगा फिर. So if you know that, then I will have a separate discussion. If you don't know, I will be like having a separate discussion onto it. So मेरा discussion उस हिसाब से जाएगा. Okay. So let us quickly summarize what stack, heap, and data are. Yes. काफी सारे लोगों को नहीं भी पता है, कुछ कुछ लोगों को पता है. So we will summarize it in this way. Whenever you create a local variable, किसी भी जनरली अगर आप सी के बात करो, सी प्लस प्लस की बात करो, इवन इफ यू टॉक अबाउट जावा, if you create a local variable, then the local variables are kept on the stack section. Local variables are kept on the stack section. If you create global variable, I'm talking about C and C++ because you cannot create global variables in Java. ये Java में possible नहीं. If you create global variables, or let's say if you create some static variables, तो उनको memory जो मिलेगी, that is going to be allocated into the data section. I'm talking about the languages that you might have learned or you might haven't learned, but जो काम होता है C and C++ के अंदर. And finally, if you allocate the memory dynamically, dynamic objects I could say, if you create, तो उनको मेमोरी जो दी जाती है, that has been given on the heap section. यानी कि these are kind of the memory sections that are generally used to store the variables or we could say the objects. एक तो आप उनको स्टैक के ऊपर रख सकते हो by creating it locally, or you can keep it onto the data section by creating it as a global, or you can create it dynamically as per the requirement. Even you have to free it, and those will be kept onto the heap section. तो जनरली ये तीन सेक्शंस होते हैं. सो नाउ वेर यू कम इन जावा, जब आप जावा में आते हो तो जावा के अंदर व्हाट वी हैव गॉट, इट्स समथिंग कॉल्ड एज मेमोरी एरियाज इनसाइड द जेवीएम. एक ब्रीफ में आपको एक डायग्राम यहाँ पे ड्रॉ करके देता हूँ. सो व्हेन वी टॉक्ड अबाउट जेवीएम ऑन द डे 1, आपने जेवीएम के बारे में बात की. सो दिस पर्टिकुलर जेवीएम हैज इट्स ओन आर्किटेक्चर, and this entire architecture we are going to discuss in detail. I am saying in detail but not today, क्योंकि काफी सारी चीजें आपको नहीं पता है, तो अभी हम लोग उसका इन डिटेल आर्किटेक्चर नहीं देख सकते. वी आर गोइंग टू सी दिस इन डिटेल आर्किटेक्चर, बट मे बी ऑन डे 8 और डे 9 वी आर गोइंग टू सी दिस. अभी थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ में मैं आपको बताता हूँ. सो व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट जेवीएम, वो फ्लो ऑफ एग्जीक्यूशन याद होगा, दैट यू हैव द hello डॉट जावा, you compile that Java using the compiler and you get hello dot class file. So whatever that class file is, you just give as an input to the JVM, and what JVM does is it converts that entire dot class file into the machine understandable code, into the CPU understandable code. And it reads the bytecodes, it interprets it and converts it into the CPU understandable code. So if you talk about this JVM, तो JVM के अंदर we have the three different areas, or we could say three sections. The first section that we have is called as the class loading subsystem. It is called as the class loading subsystem. The second section that we have is called as the memory areas, and the third section that we have is called as the execution engine. Generally, it consists of three sections. The first section that we call it as a class loading subsystem. The first type of component that we have inside the JVM is class loading subsystem. The second one that we have is called as the memory areas. Memory areas. And the third that we have is called as the execution engine. हमारे पास तीन components होते हैं JVM के अंदर, I am sorry say. So whenever you load a particular class, so class loading subsystem is responsible to load that class. यानी कि वो class JVM के अंदर load होता है, तो उसको कौन load करता है? Who loads that particular class? So this class loading subsystem loads that particular class. Whatever the class has been loaded, depending on how the class has been defined, it is going to be allocating the memories for those variables and object into those memory areas. यानी कि जितने भी आप वेरिएबल्स उस क्लास के अंदर बनाओगे, एज अ फील्ड्स बनाओगे, मे बी यू विल बी क्रिएटिंग द डिफरेंट फंक्शंस, उसके अंदर लोकल वेरिएबल्स रहेंगे, मे बी यू विल बी क्रिएटिंग द ऑब्जेक्ट्स डायनामिकली, all those things will be allocated the memory on these memory areas. How many memory areas do we have? So there are total 5 different memory areas. यहाँ पे 5 memory areas होते हैं, जिनमें से first 3 I am going to draw. मैं यहाँ पे पहले 3 ड्रॉ करने वाला हूँ. मे बी fourth and fifth we don't require it right now, so I am not going to draw it. So this is going to be the memory area. So these are the 3 memory areas, or we could say 3 areas into this, which I require right now. The first one that we have is called as the method area. पहले area को कहा जाता है method area. The second area that we have is called as the Java heap. And the third one that we have is called as the Java stack. Fourth, we have PC registers, and the fifth we have native method stack. यानी कि इसके आगे और 2 blocks आएंगे. There are total 5 different memory areas, जिसमें से 3 के ऊपर मुझे अभी फोकस करना है. On this first 3 I want to focus. Next 2 I don't require it right now. But there are total 5 different memory areas. Method area, Java heap, and Java stack. And then what we have is the execution engine. Now see what happens. Whenever a particular class has been loaded, so the responsibility to load a particular class is for this class loading subsystem. The class loading subsystem will start loading the classes, and it will keep all those variables and objects into the respective memory areas. Whatever the particular, let's say, the bytecode that we have got, now that entire bytecode along with the we could say links to these memory areas will be given to this execution engine. This execution engine consists of an interpreter. Execution engine के अंदर 2 मेन चीजें हैं. One is called as an interpreter and another is called as a garbage collector. So the interpreter inside this execution engine will start interpreting the bytecodes line by line. वो हर एक particular, let's say, bytecodes को read करते जाएगा line by line, and it is going to convert that into the CPU understandable code. तो धीरे धीरे हर एक लाइन को, bytecodes को interpret करता जाएगा. It will start interpreting it, and it will start completing that particular code, or it will start converting that code into the CPU understandable language. यानी कि बाइनरी में कन्वर्ट करके it will just pass on. So this is how generally the JVM works. JVM will take the input of a .class file and it will convert it into the CPU code. उसके लिए internally 3 components काम में आते हैं. पहला, class loading subsystem responsible to load all the .class files. Second, the memory areas where all the memories for those variables and objects will be given. And the third, execution engine, where the interpreter and garbage collector will continuously work, where it will be interpreting line by line every single bytecode, and it will be converting it into the CPU understandable code. This is how generally the JVM works in turn. JVM इस तरीके से वो काम करता है. Now, whenever generally the JVM works in this way, जब ये JVM इस तरीके से काम करता है, तो ये जो 3 areas है, ये काफी important areas निकल जाते हैं. Because while creating these objects, while creating the classes, what you must be having the understanding is about these 3 memory areas. So into the memory areas, the first one is the method area. Method area is the area where the entire क्लास एंड ऑल इट्स मेथड्स आर केप्ट। यानी कि इस क्लास और उसके जो मेथड्स यानी कि उसका जो मेटा डेटा होता है दैट इज गोइंग टू बी केप्ट इनसाइड दिस मेथड एरिया। सो व्हेनेवर द क्लास इज बीन लोडेड, क्लास लोड करने के बाद वो क्लास की बॉडी यानी कि वो टेक्स्ट कहां पे रखा जाएगा, वेयर द एंटायर मेथड्स फंक्शंस आर गोइंग टू बी केप्ट, दोस आर गोइंग टू बी केप्ट इनसाइड द मेथड एरिया। फर्स्ट थिंग, inside a class, if there are any local variables that are created inside these functions, यानी कि इन मेथड्स के अंदर अगर कुछ लोकल वेरिएबल्स क्रिएट हो गए, या फिर इवन लुक इनसाइड दिस मेन, this is a program class and inside this main I am creating a local variable, let's say time t1. Whatever the local variables that will be created, these are going to be kept onto the Java stack. वो स्टैक के ऊपर रखे जाएंगे। जस्ट एज वी टॉक्ड अबाउट ऑल द लोकल वेरिएबल्स आर केप्ट ऑन टू द स्टैक, वैसे ही जावा भी वही काम करता है, लोकल वेरिएबल्स को इट विल कीप इट ऑन टू द जावा स्टैक। एंड इफ देर आर एनी ऑब्जेक्ट्स दैट आर क्रिएटेड बाय यूजिंग न्यू, अगर आप न्यू कीवर्ड से डायनामिक ऑब्जेक्ट्स को अगर आप क्रिएट करते हो, सो ऑल दोस डायनामिक मेमोरी इज गोइंग टू बी एलोकेटेड ऑन टू द जावा हीप। तो उसको जावा हीप सेक्शन के अंदर मेमोरी वो एलोकेट करेगी। So this is how Java allocates the memories into the memory areas. So whatever the, let's say, local variables you will be creating, it will go onto the Java stack. Whatever the new objects that will be creating by using the new keyword will go onto the heap section. And whenever you are defining those classes, so the classes and all its functions or all its methods will go inside the method area. Along with that, whenever we are going to talk about static, तो उसके बारे में हम लोग separate discussion करेंगे कि उसको मेमोरी कहाँ पे मिलेगी. But right now, what you are able to see it into my class, so these are the sections where the memory is going to be allocated. उनको मेमोरी इन तीन सेक्शंस के ऊपर मिलेगी, मेथड एरिया, जावा हीप एंड जावा स्टैक. First, is this theoretical part clear to you? Any questions into this? Okay. So what we have is right now this diagram of the very basic diagram of the JVM architecture, and what we have understand are these three areas: method area, Java heap and Java stack. Now why I have drawn this is because मुझे एक छोटे से डायग्राम जो है वो यहाँ पे ड्रॉ करनी है. I want to draw a diagram. Look at this. I am going to say this is the stack section and I am going to say this is the heap section. See, मैं दो चीजें यहाँ पे रख रहा हूँ, एक है स्टैक, दूसरा है heap. Now, as we discussed about, all the local variables will get the space onto the stack section, and all the objects are going to get the space on the heap section. So, if you look at this particular, let's say, main method, so inside the main method, when I say time t1, ये time t1 क्या बना? So t1 बना एक variable. Variable of a class is called as a reference. Variable of a class is called as a reference. So whenever you say time t1, जब आप time t1 कहोगे तो इसको जो मेमोरी है वो मिलेगी इस स्टैक के ऊपर. Where the memory for this t1 will be given, so the memory for the t1 is going to be given on this particular stack section like this. ये देखो यहाँ, क्यों? क्योंकि वो local variable है, it is a local variable. So I am going to say this is my t1 which is going to be of type time. ये बना stack section के ऊपर. Now if you talk about new time, ये जो आपने new कहा है, new, so because of this new, the memory for this object is going to be given on the heap section. यानी कि object जो बनेगा, see this is a reference, ये reference बना, और ये new time क्या बना? Object बना. So the memory for this object is going to be given on the heap section. तो object को memory कहाँ पे मिली? Heap section में. Now the question comes, object के अंदर memory किसे मिलेगी? So inside the object, memory is assigned for whom? यानी कि exactly कितने bytes की memory लगेगी? क्या 4 bytes की लगेगी, 8 bytes की लगेगी, 16 bytes की लगेगी? What amount of memory is going to be allocated for this object? So that depends on the non-static members inside the class, or we could say non-static fields inside the class. This statement is really important because at the time of static, I do require this statement once again. So whenever you create the object, so inside the object, I could say memory is allocated for all the नॉन स्टैटिक फील्ड्स ऑफ द क्लास। ये टर्म काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है, नॉन स्टैटिक। सो मे बी आई कैन जस्ट अंडरलाइन दिस टर्म, मे बी यू रिक्वायर इट later whenever we are going to talk about static, वहां पे शायद आपको काम में भी आएगा। Right now just focus on this, that memory is allocated for all the non-static fields of the class. Now just check into your class how many non-static fields are there. So there are two fields inside the class, one is hour, another is minute. So for hour and for minute the memory is going to be allocated inside this object, यानी कि जो heap section पे आपका object बनेगा, so this object is going to look like this. So here the memory is going to be allocated for the hour and the memory is allocated for the minutes. Hour is going to be of type integer and the minute is going to be again of type integer. So total here right now 8 bytes is being allocated into the memory. तो यहाँ पे ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए 8 बाइट्स की मेमोरी एलोकेट की जा चुकी है। We have said it like this, new time. So whatever this memory is allocated on the heap section, जो भी मेमोरी एलोकेट हुई है, let's say इसका जो एड्रेस है, it is going to be 0x200. So this address is going to be stored inside the reference. So the reference is actually pointing at this object. तो reference कहाँ पे गया? Stack पे, object बना heap पे. The reference is created on the stack, object is created on the heap. Reference points at that object. Reference stores the address of the object. रेफरेंस के अंदर ऑब्जेक्ट का एड्रेस होता है. ऑब्जेक्ट इज क्रिएटेड ऑन द हीप सेक्शन. ऑब्जेक्ट इज क्रिएटेड ऑन द हीप सेक्शन. हाउ मच मेमोरी विल बी गिवन फॉर दिस ऑब्जेक्ट? सो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन टोटल नंबर ऑफ नॉन स्टैटिक फील्ड्स इनसाइड द क्लास. व्हाट इज द साइज ऑफ एन ऑब्जेक्ट? इट इज इक्वल टू द टोटल नंबर ऑफ नॉन स्टैटिक फील्ड्स इनसाइड द क्लास. तो यहाँ पे नॉन स्टैटिक फील्ड्स दो थे, आवर एंड मिनट, तो उनके लिए ये ऑब्जेक्ट ऐसे इस तरीके से बन जाए. कहाँ पे? ऑन द हीप सेक्शन. Now, because the object is created and because for this object an address has been allocated, यानी कि physically क्योंकि present है memory के अंदर, that is why we call this object as a physical entity. यानी कि जो statement में लिखा था, it is also called as a physical entity. So why it is called as a physical entity is because it has its existence inside the memory. So whenever you create the object, उसके लिए कोई ना कोई address यहाँ पे assign किया जा चुका है. An address is already been assigned and it is physically present, जिसको हम लोग छू के भी देख सकते हैं. Where we can even touch that particular object, we can access that particular object, and that is why this object is called as a physical entity. Why class is called as a logical entity is because class जो create हुआ है, this class is just giving you the information that how an object is going to be created. Class खुद कुछ memory allocate नहीं करेगा. For a particular class, no such kind of a separate memory has been allocated. Memory will be allocated only when object is created. But वो object किस तरीके से create होगा, how the object is going to be created, that is what a class has to provide you the information with. And that is why this class is called as a logical entity, because no separate memory is allocated for it. And second, it is also called as the blueprint of an object. To blueprint, just as I said, that it tells you how the object is going to be created. Just as by looking at the class, मैं इस क्लास को देख के ही ये आइडेंटिफाई कर पा रहा हूं कि the object into my memory is going to be created like this. So class is acting as a blueprint for us. It is telling me how the object is getting created. So object will be created. How much members? So it is the class is telling. Acha, there are two members. Acha, which are those? Hours and minutes of type integer and integer. This is how a class object is going to be created. That's class and object for you. Let me know any questions into the class and object. I will wait for your questions and let me know. Even because it is a reference, generally अगर आपको pointers के concept पता है, so around it takes 4 bytes because it is a simple variable. Internally it is a pointer. तो internally वो एक pointer है, तो वो 4 bytes उठाएगा. One thing in Java that you must know, that Java does not have the size of operator. That means you cannot check actually the sizes of the object or of the references. आप check नहीं कर सकते. This is just the documented part that the Java has. तो अगर आप किसी data type की भी बात करोगे, even if you talk about the data type that we discussed, you cannot check the sizes. आप sizes को check नहीं कर सकते. So there is no size of operator. Actual size कितना लिया है नहीं check कर सकते. Java does not support size of operator. So these are all the documented part by the Java. ये जावा ने खुद डॉक्यूमेंट में लिख के दिया है कि यस दिस इज हाउ आई डू, दिस इज हाउ आई एलोकेट, सो यू मस्ट बी जस्ट यूजिंग इट, दैट। एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस? स्टैटिक फील्ड्स हम लोग आएंगे। स्टैटिक एक पूरा अलग सेक्शन है, वी हैव टू डिस्कस ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर स्टैटिक। यहाँ पे भी आपने चेक किया रहेगा स्टैटिक, सो इट इज लाइक टू कॉम्प्लेक्स राइट नाउ टू डाइजेस्ट इट। अभी स्टैटिक को हम लोग यहाँ पे मिक्स नहीं करेंगे, ठीक है, दैट इज वाई। तो स्टैटिक को थोड़ा सा अभी फिलहाल के लिए साइड में रखो। इट इज लाइक फॉर शेयरिंग पर्पजेस इट इज यूज्ड। इज एड्रेस इज ऑलवेज 4 बाइट्स? यस, जनरली वैसे ही रखा जाता है। सो इट डिपेंड्स ऑन हाउ द जेवीएम इज बीन कॉन्फ़िगर। जेवीएम को कैसे कॉन्फ़िगर किया गया है उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करता है, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज हैपनिंग इनटू द वर्चुअल मेमोरी राइट नाउ। इट इज नॉट द फिजिकल मेमोरी, इट इज द वर्चुअल मेमोरी, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग इज हैपनिंग इनसाइड द जेवीएम। वो जेवीएम के अंदर हो रहा है। तो जेवीएम का कॉन्फ़िगरेशन जिस हिसाब से होगा, रेफरेंसेस उस हिसाब से बनेंगे। सो द एड्रेस विल बी आइदर 4 बाइट्स और 8 बाइट्स डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ इंटरनली पॉइंटर्स द जेवीएम इज मेंटेनिंग। आप तो चेक ही नहीं कर पाओगे, you don't have any options actually to check. Any other questions? So assuming that there are no more questions, I'm going ahead. uh, when we create object in the what is it? Yes, yes, obviously उसके बिना काम ही नहीं हो पाएगा। जब आप रेफरेंस क्रिएट करते हो, इंटरनली पॉइंटर ही क्रिएट होता है एंड द पॉइंटर स्टोर्स द ऑब्जेक्ट इनसाइड। तो वो काम कैसे करेगा? As I said, you can go to the internals if you are coming from the C++ background. If you don't know it, then this is abstraction for it. This is how generally it works. So reference is going to be created on stack, and object is going to be created on heap, and the reference will store the address of that object. Now, how the address gets stored? So for that, you must know the concept of pointers. So the way the pointers work. So pointers are designed to store the addresses. So references are internal nothing but the pointers that you do create. आप नहीं क्रिएट करते हो, जावा क्रिएट्स इट फॉर यू, इट इज जस्ट अ रेफरेंस फॉर यू। नाउ बिकॉज इट इज अ रेफरेंस, इट हैज जस्ट रिमूव्ड ऑल द कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ द पॉइंटर्स, यानी कि डीरेफरेंसिंग वगैरह जो भी आप करते थे, वट एवर द पार्ट दैट यू डू विद द पॉइंटर्स, इट इज टोटली बीन रिमूव्ड, एंड दैट्स व्हाई पीपल से जावा इज सिंपल। Pointer and a reference, actually reference is internally a pointer, so there is no difference. It is actually, so it is like reference is internally a pointer, but the complexity of pointers the reference has removed. So are you seeing any dereferencing over here? No. Are you seeing any arrow operators that I'm going to use over here? No. So what if I want to access those methods? You are just going to say t1 dot. So वो dereferencing arrow operator वो सारे concepts यहाँ से निकल जाते हैं. So all those are been removed. That's how simple the reference is. So it is like making your life bit simpler now. Java is making your life bit simple by removing the complexity of pointers. So the pointers are totally hidden away from you. So why you are just once again bringing it back to the front, and you even cannot bring it into the Java now. Java के अंदर pointers का support ही नहीं है. There is no support for pointers in Java. But yes, do not forget, on top of C++, the Java is being developed. बस ये मत भूलो. Any other questions? No? Is the class, object, and reference, first of all, clear to you now? अगर समझ आ चुका है, you can just tell me, and then we can go ahead. Um, don't worry too much about a lot of things into the depth, I would say, because to understand each and everything, so whatever we are working right now, whatever the diagrams that we are drawing, I'm drawing this considering that I have got both types of people into this particular meeting. Like people are also coming from C++ and people who are also learning this Java directly. So if you are coming from C and C++, if you have worked with the pointers explicitly, then I could say that you will be able to even imagine this part, because this is something that you might have worked with. So you might have said it like this. Maybe अगर time का ही consider करता हूँ, if I consider the class in C++, you might have said it like this: tptr equals to new type. So this syntax of C++ is being simplified in Java like this. So I hope you are getting the difference now. The one who are coming from the C++ background. So C++ में ऐसा नहीं है कि ये नहीं होता था. So this is what has happened already in C++. Now the syntax simplification has been done in Java. The complexity of pointers that was present over here. Because if it is a pointer, I have to use it like this, tptr arrow, to call the particular, let's say, functions. If it is a normal object which happens like this, जो कि ऐसे create होता है, time tptr, or we could say time t in C++, on this you have to use the dot operator. So ये जो complexity था arrow की dot operator in C++ is totally now removed in Java, and there is only one way of creating the object now. अभी आपके पास सिर्फ एक ही तरीका बचा है. There is no any another way of creating it. So there is only one way, time t equals to new time, and that is how it will be created. This is the memory diagram for it. You must know both this part. Now, why this memory diagram is important? Because whenever you talk about references, and whenever you are going to create the array of references, at that time you need this particular memory diagram to understand that part. वो part समझने के लिए आपको ये सारी चीजें को के बारे में पता होना ज्यादा important है. So you must know all these things when you are going to work with those particular arrays by considering their memory layouts. That's important. It is. Let me know any questions. हाँ, अगर questions होंगे तो questions पूछो, नहीं होंगे so you can just say no questions, or you can just tell me if you have got those things so far. Do not rush, आप कर पाओगे, टेंशन मत लो. I know this is going to be too much of technical things that you are trying to understand, that you're trying to digest, but go a bit slow, understand it point by point. आप point by point understand करो, and then you can just mix it to create the better applications, I could say, the one that we are going to create. Today, or maybe we could say the next 3 days, we are just going to talk about the basics, the fundamentals, the concepts, the terms that are going to be used in Java. Because when you are going to create the applications, ये सारी चीजों के बारे में पता होना काफी important है. Without them, you cannot start coding. यानी कि यहाँ पे आप notice कर ही सकते हो, static ही नहीं पता है, but still I am creating the main and static. See, these are the problems. I don't know how to create the object, and I am just using it. यानी कि I don't know what object is, and but still I am saying system.out.println. So why this is happening to me? Because if you are learning it, the Java for the very first time. If you have learned the C++, then you know all the things, then it is really simple to digest the things in Java. And what you are able to see is, okay, I have done that in C++, it is just the different syntax in Java. It is the same thing. It is the same diagram in C++, but here it is just the reference in Java. Because if I could compare this in C++, the diagram remains exactly same. Diagram is रहेगी. सिर्फ difference क्या होगा? This is not going to be the T1, this is going to be the pointer. तो ये पॉइंटर होगा. That's the only difference. But the diagram remains same. So please try to understand it as per your understanding. Don't rush for it. Just understand it as per your pace. Yes. Any questions? Yes or no? No questions. Thank you very much. Now let us go ahead. अब एक स्टेप और आगे जाते हैं. Now what we have seen is like class, object, and reference. Now what I need to discuss is like the conversions that you have already done so far. अगर आपने नहीं किए हैं अभी तक conversion, this will be a new part for you. You just try to understand कि ऐसा होता है. But if you have already done it in C and C++, this is the same thing that I want to do. Conversions. I am converting now. Converting a value. Conversions करने वाला हूं. And for those conversions, Java has given some names. Java ने कुछ यहाँ पे उसके names मुझे दे के रखे. So now let us start understanding this. So you have to tell me. I'm going to just copy the program, or maybe within this particular part, I will be creating one more class. So I would say this is going to be program 02 that I want to create, which is going to again have a main method inside it. You can check this out within the particular, let's say, default package. I can create as many classes as I want, and in every class I can keep the main. So I think this entire example I have shown you on the day one. कि आप जितने क्लासेस चाहिए उतने क्लासेस लिखो, एवरी क्लास के अंदर, इन एवरी क्लास यू कैन स्टार्ट राइटिंग द मेन मेथड इनसाइड इट एंड इट इज गोइंग टू एग्जीक्यूट। आपको जो चाहिए आप वो करो। चले, जावा है। So now in this particular, let's say main method, I want to declare a variable called as a num1, which is going to have a value as 10. num1 के अंदर वैल्यू है 10। num1 एक इंटीजर टाइप का है, so I can say 4 bytes is taken into the memory and it has got the specific range. It has got a specific range. Now what I want to do is I want to store the value of num1 inside this num2. Is it possible? First of all, you tell me, क्या मैं num1 की वैल्यू, क्या मैं इस 10 को कैन आई स्टोर इट इनसाइड अ डबल टाइप ऑफ डेटा टाइप? क्या ये मैं स्टोर कर सकता हूं? क्या मैं स्टोर कर सकता हूं? क्या इससे पहले आपने स्टोर किया है? हैव यू स्टोर्ड दिस अर्लियर? यस, as and always we have done this part. So what I can do is I can start storing the num1, which is of 4 bytes, into the double, which is going to be of 8 bytes. And the range of values that the integer can store is smaller as compared to the range of values the particular double can store. The range of values I'm saying, the range of values. So because I am storing a narrower type of value into the wider type, we call it as widening. तो जावा इसे वाइडनिंग कहता है। दिस इज समथिंग दैट वी हैव डन इट अर्लियर एज वेल, यानी कि हम लोग डबल टाइप ऑफ पैरामीटर दे करके उसको डबल और इंटीजर दोनों वैल्यूज पास करते हैं। वी डू पास द वैल्यूज बाय डिक्लेयरिंग द पैरामीटर ऑफ टाइप डबल। वी कैन आल्सो पास इट एज ए इंटीजर वैल्यू, वी कैन आल्सो पास इट एज अ डबल वैल्यू। सो दिस कन्वर्जेंस वी हैव ऑलरेडी डन, लेकिन उसका कोई नाम नहीं था। सो नाउ द जावा इज प्रोवाइडिंग अ नेम फॉर इट वेयर इट सेज conversion of narrower type into the wider type. We will call it as we will call it as widening. So let me mention it. What is widening? So widening is nothing but conversion of narrower type of data into wider type is called as widening. इसे कहा जाता है widening. Exactly opposite होता है narrowing. Exactly opposite होता है narrowing. Look at this. Suppose I have this double type of data. Double num3 equals to maybe I could say 12.34. So I have a double type of data. Can I store this inside this integer? Can I store this inside this integer? क्या मैं num4 के अंदर num3 को स्टोर कर सकता हूं? Can I store the value of num3 inside the num4? Can you tell me what is the problem? Can you tell me what is the problem? We have a wider type of data, and the range of values that a double can store is of wider type as compared to the integer type. Integer type stores the whole numbers. It cannot stores the fractional numbers, or it cannot stores the numbers with the decimal part. So there is going to be the loss of precision. तो यहाँ पे आपके precision का loss है. So whenever you want to store a wider type of data into the narrower type, whenever you want to store the wider type of data into the narrower type, at that time you have to do the explicit typecasting. यानी कि आपको यहाँ पे explicit typecasting करना मैंडेटरी होता है. This is called as narrowing. इसे कहा जाता है narrowing. What is narrowing? Conversion of wider type of data into narrower type is called as narrowing. Is called as narrowing. So if you convert a narrower type of data into the wider type, we call it as a widening. No explicit typecasting is required. But if you convert the wider type into the narrower type, we call it as narrowing, and explicit typecasting is mandatory. तो यहाँ पे आपको explicit typecast करना ही पड़ेगा, because you are agreeing that there is going to be the loss of precision, the loss of data, क्योंकि यहाँ पे data loss होने वाला है. So that's why an explicit typecasting is required. Otherwise, at the case of winding, there is no any data loss. So that is why there is no requirement of explicit typecasting. यहाँ पे explicit typecasting की जरूरत नहीं है. Let me know any questions into the narrowing and widening. यहाँ पे narrowing widening में कोई questions? Yes, if you try to print it, यहाँ पे if you try to print the num4, it is going to be 12. 0.34 गायब हो जाएगा. If you try to print num3, it is going to be 12.34. Similarly, यहाँ पे if you try to print, it is going to be 10 because there is no any loss right now. You can just print it, you can just check. Data doesn't get lost in explicit narrowing, is it? No, data is lost. Data is lost. That is what I'm saying. ये data loss होने ही वाला है, and that is what you are agreeing on. You are forcing it down to convert it to integer. कि यहाँ पे वो खुद ब खुद नहीं हो सकता. So if you try to convert that particular num3 which is of type double into the integer, that is not possible. You are forcing it to convert it. आप उसको force कर रहे हो. लेकिन force करने की वजह से क्या हुआ? The data has been lost. Because of the force that you are putting, the data has been lost. Okay. So now let us go ahead and let me ask you a question. अब आपसे कुछ क्वेश्चंस नहीं आ रहे, सो आई एम गोइंग टू आस्क यू एज एन इंटरव्यूअर. थोड़ा सा मैं आपको एज ए इंटरव्यूअर आप क्वेश्चन पूछता हूँ, ठीक है? एंड आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग कि आप कुछ आंसर्स यहाँ पे मुझे दो. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, so we have talked about a boolean data type. So maybe I could say boolean. This is going to be b1 equals to maybe I could say true. So as we discussed, क्या मैं इस boolean के अंदर ऐसे 10 20 रख सकता हूँ? Can I store 10 20 30 like this inside a boolean? No. As we talked about, inside a boolean you can either store true or you can store something called as a false. एक तो आप true store कर सकते हो या फिर false store कर सकते हो. Other than this, you cannot store anything inside the boolean. So whatever this boolean value is, please answer me. Can I store it inside an integer value? Can I store it inside an integer value? क्या इस b1 को boolean value को क्या मैं integer के अंदर स्टोर कर सकता हूँ? What are your answers? I am expecting your answers. चलो आंसर्स आना चालू हो चुके हैं. वेरी गुड, आई गॉट द आंसर्स. एक का ही आंसर उसमें सही है. चेक दिस आउट. b1. Can I keep a boolean value inside the n1? अच्छा ये भी नहीं. It is giving me error. If you are observing this, it is giving me error over here. जरा explicit typecast करके देखते हैं. Let us do the explicit typecasting. Maybe I want to say keep it inside the integer. Is it allowing me? Is it allowing me? No. Check this out. Check this out. I am going to say character ch equals to b1. I am going to say double. We could say d1 equals to b1. Please check this out. Is it allowing me to convert that particular boolean into integer, character, or double? So no. You cannot convert the boolean into any other primitive types. Not possible. If you check for the integral types, if you check for the primitive types, तो यहाँ पे primitive की 4 categories है, out of which boolean type cannot be converted into any other types. Not possible. You cannot convert boolean into any other types. Any questions into this? Really simple. ये चीज याद रखो. A boolean cannot be converted into any other type. So let me just remove this. Maybe I'm going to put it over here. Boolean cannot be converted into any other type. Not possible. This is not possible. Comment out this. Next, I want to say we have a character, maybe ch equals to, let's say, a. This is going to be a simple character. Can I just convert it into the double? So maybe I could say double d1 equals to question mark. Answer this. इसका आंसर. Can I convert a character into the double? Generally you might have worked about कि ASCII values आपको पता होंगे that every character has got an integer value to it, or we could say an ASCII value to it. So you might have heard that. So I'm doing the same thing. So what I'm declaring is a particular character called as a and instead of integer, I am storing it inside the double. So maybe I can do it with the integer first. So maybe I'm going to say this is my integer n1 equals to, let's say, ch. Is it possible? First of all, can I store a character inside an integer? क्या मैं ये कर सकता हूँ? चलो, वेरी गुड. कैन आई स्टोर द कैरेक्टर? आई लुक एट दिस. आप यहाँ पे चेक कर सकते हो. इज देयर एनी एरर राइट नाउ? नो, देयर इज नो एनी एरर. You know that every particular character has got a numeric value to it. अगर आप कोई भी, even if you talk about Unicode character encoding scheme that the Java support, for every single character you have got an integer value assigned to it. Internally वो होता ही है ASCII value that we talk about. ASCII value, ASCII is another encoding scheme, Unicode is another encoding scheme. So similarly, my question is, can I keep the character inside the double? So that's my question. Look at that. So I'm converting the character into the integer or into the double. Is it possible? Yes. तो यहाँ पे भी अगर आप चेक करोगे, now as boolean cannot be converted to any other type. However, we can convert the character into the integral as well as into the floating points. एक तो आप character को integral या floating points में convert कर सकते हो. So while you are converting this, can you tell me whether it is a widening or is it a narrowing? क्या वो widening है कि क्या वो narrowing है? Can you tell me this? Very good. Widening. Many people are saying widening. Chalo, let me show you one more thing. So I'm going to have the n2 as, let's say, 65 over here. So can I store this n2 inside the character? Can I store this n2 inside the character? Can I say it like this? ch2 equals to n2. Can I say it like this? It is giving me error. Like, why it is giving me error? Why it is giving me error? Can you just guess this? अब ये error मुझे क्यों दे रहा है? Very good. So just do the typecasting and just check कि मैं उसको character में convert करना चाहता हूँ. Just check this out. Is it allowing me? Yes. So यहाँ पे भी मुझे क्या समझ है? That when you talk about character, it is around 2 bytes. 2 bytes in the sense the range of values that it can store is less as compared to the range of values an integer or a double can store. एक तो वो इंटीजर या फिर डबल जो स्टोर कर सकता है, उससे ये पर्टिकुलर रेंज क्या है, मेरा वाइडर टाइप ऑफ है. कौन सा? इंटीजर का वाइडर टाइप ऑफ है, कैरेक्टर का नैरो टाइप ऑफ है. So here you can observe that character I can store, or the value of character I can store directly into the integrals and floating points. वहां पे मैं डायरेक्टली स्टोर कर सकता हूँ. However, the integral and floating points value I cannot store directly into the character types because the range is of wider type. तो यहाँ पे भी आप narrowing और widening का concept देख सकते हैं. यानी कि not only the narrowing and widening, you are able to see it within this particular part, or we could say diagram कहाँ पे गया? So within this particular part, like integral floating, but it is also possible with the help of character types. But remember, boolean types के साथ वो possible नहीं है. Boolean types के साथ वो possible नहीं है. If you are writing boolean b1 equals to true, is it literal taking as one? Yes. तो अगर आप यहाँ पे ट्रू लिखोगे तो ट्रू क्या होता है? When this entire code is going to be into the byte codes के साथ ये जब CPU अंडरस्टैंडेबल कोड में जाएगा तो ये ट्रू हमेशा एज अ 1 जाएगा और फॉल्स हमेशा एज अ 0 जाएगा. So that is going to be internally considered as this. Internally considered. एक और स्टेटमेंट में यहाँ पे आपको बताना चाहता हूँ. One more statement I want to definitely give over here. Generally, when you talk about the convergence between integral and floating point, now listen to this statement really well. So I have shown you these examples on purpose. मैंने ये दो examples purposefully दिए. The first example, like program 02, where you have seen the convergence between the integral and floating type, integral and floating point. So can I say integral हो या फिर floating point हो, all these two categories or both these categories are actually dealing with the numbers. If you talk about integral and floating point, other than this integral and floating point, this character is dealing with something called as single letters, or you could say alphabets. If you talk about boolean, it talks about the status is true and false. So if the conversion is done between the numbers, that is integral or floating types, then generally we call it as the widening or narrowing. तो हम लोग जनरली उसको वाइडनिंग और नैरोइंग कहते हैं. Whenever it is done with the other types, यानी कि if the number type is converted to a character or character to a number, तो instead of saying it as a widening or narrowing, we generally call it as type conversion. ये थोड़ा सा याद रखो, ये सेगमेंट याद रखो. हाँ, यू कैन से इट एज वाइडनिंग नैरोइंग. आई डोंट से नो, मैं इसको नहीं कह रहा हूं. बट generally instead of saying it as a widening and narrowing, you should call it as a type conversion, where number type is converted to the character type or the character type is converted to the number type. So these types are getting converted in one another. So that is why you should be considering it in this way. You should not say directly like this कि सर ये वाइडनिंग नैरोइंग हो रहा है. नो, वाइडनिंग नैरोइंग यू कैन से इट इन द केस ऑफ नंबर्स. आप नंबर्स के केस में कह सकते हो. बट वेन एवर यू टॉक अबाउट द टाइप्स, डिफरेंट डिफरेंट टाइप्स, यानी कि ये टाइप्स के बीच का कन्वर्जन है. सो यू आर कन्वर्टिंग अ कैरेक्टर इनटू द इंटीग्रल ऑफ फ्लोटिंग. यू आर कन्वर्टिंग दिस पार्ट इनटू दिस. सो ऑब्वियस सी बात है, व्हाट यू हैव टू डू इज यू हैव टू एक्चुअली कॉल इट एज अ कन्वर्जन. ऐसा मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूं क्योंकि आप भी देखो, कैरेक्टर इज ऑफ 2 बाइट्स, शॉर्ट इज ऑफ 2 बाइट्स. अरे अब दोनों के भी साइजेस क्या है, सेम हो चुके हैं. If both the sizes are same, let us test it out. तो इसको भी टेस्ट करते हैं. So I can say it like this: short, let's say S1 equals to, maybe I could say 97, and maybe I'm going to say character CH3 equals to S1. Tell me, can I store the value of short inside the character? दोनों भी 2 बाइट्स के हैं. अब यहाँ पे प्रिसीजन लॉस का कोई सवाल ही नहीं उठता है. देयर इज नो एनी कंसेप्ट ऑफ प्रिसीजन लॉस ओवर हियर. दोनों का भी साइजेस क्या है, सेम ही आ चुका है. लुक एट दैट, इट इज नॉट अलाउिंग मी टू स्टोर. चलो एक काम करते हैं, एक्सप्लिसिट टाइप कास्ट करके देखते हैं. कैरेक्टर, maybe I could say it like this. अब पॉसिबल है. Not only that, you can say it like this. Maybe I could say character CH4 equals to, maybe I will call it as a capital B, and maybe I'm going to say short S3 or maybe S2 equals to CH4. So now I'm doing vice versa. Now I'm trying to store the character into the short. यहाँ पे I am converting the short into the character. Now I'm trying to convert the character into the short. यहाँ पे दोनों के साइजेस भी सेम है, यानी कि even the range of values that it can store I'm talking about is going to be similar, but you can find it out कि अरे there is a problem. एक छोटा सा प्रॉब्लम आ ही रहा है यहाँ पे. So I have to always do the explicit typecasting. मुझे यहाँ पे explicit typecasting करना ही पड़ रहा है. I have to do it like this. Explicit typecasting. Look at that. So right now here there is no any concept of narrowing and widening. Here it is a plain simple concept of type conversion. Here it is same concept of type conversion. So what you are trying to do is you are trying to convert one type into the another type. And while conversion, if the particular destination type, see this is the destination type, if this is wider as compared to that particular given type, and whatever the conversion that you are doing, so in this case you don't have to do the explicit typecasting. But however, if at the type of type conversion, when you are converting one type to the another type, at that type, if the destination type is of smaller or we could say narrower type, so obviously you have to do the explicit typecasting. If both of them are of same type, then during the type conversion you have to do the explicit typecasting. अगर दोनों के sizes same होंगे तो आपको typecasting करना ही पड़ेगा. So that is why generally conversion of character to any integral or floating point, any conversion to this are called as simple type conversions. इनको narrowing widening नहीं कहा जाता है, इनको type conversions कहा जाता है. And whenever type conversions are done, it is recommended to do the explicit typecasting. यहाँ पे जनरली रिकमेंड किया जाता है कि आप explicit typecasting करो, भले ही वो ना कहे, but still whenever you are doing it for the integer, you do it. It is a good practice to follow this. हाँ, नहीं करोगे तो चलेगा, but it is a good practice while having the type conversions. That's about narrowing, widening, and type conversions. Now, before I ask you that you have any questions, let me tell you कि ये इतना concept बताने का reason एक ही है, that if these questions are asked into an interviews, so very few instances have happened where the interviewer do ask such questions if you are generally a fresher. So if you have learned only as a Java language and if you are giving the interviews and if your entire focus is only on Java, so you can expect these questions from the interviewer. He can ask you what is widening, he can ask you what is narrowing, he will ask you which types can be converted into which other types, can we convert the boolean into other types. So these type of questions are asked. So because you can have these questions into an interviews, that I have explained these particular things. So अब इसके ऊपर if you have any questions, let me know. So what we have done is conversion between the primitive types itself. सिर्फ primitives के बीच में ही यहाँ पे conversions कर रहे हैं. Do not ask right now any questions like what if I convert character to a non-primitive type or integral to non-primitive. Don't ask that question right now. So our convergence is right now between the primitive types. हम लोग सिर्फ primitive types के बीच में ही deal कर रहे हैं. So any questions on this? I will wait for a minute. Let me know if you have any questions so far. If no, you can say no questions. Okay, fine. Well, good. That means you are understanding those parts. It's really good to see. Now let us do one thing. It's already 11, so it's time to take a break first. So we will take a break first, and then we are going to continue for the next things. So maybe I am going to just pause this recording. So before the break, we talked about the concept of narrowing and widening, where we are trying to convert the types from one category to the other category within the primitive types. I'm saying within the primitive types. Now, what if I want to convert a primitive type into the non-primitive type and a non-primitive type once again back to the primitive type? ऐसा conversion अगर मुझे करना है तो so for this we have a concept called as a boxing and unboxing. तो ऐसे concepts को कहा जाता है boxing and unboxing. So conversion of a primitive type into a non-primitive type, we call it as a boxing, and converting a non-primitive type into the primitive type is called as a unboxing. इसे कहा जाता है unboxing. So let us understand with those examples that what is boxing and what is unboxing. होता क्या है? So इस concept को understand करने के लिए what I'm going to create is another program over here. So let me create a particular class. We are going to call it as a program 04. So again, I do require a main inside it. That's the program 4. So now see. ये concept क्यों आया या फिर why this concept is really important? Now let us understand this. Now in Java specifically, you can see there are so many primitive types. Right now in Java, we have the integer, we have the boolean, we have the character, we have the byte, we have the short, we have the long, we have the float, we have the double. All these are primitive types. Primitive types in the sense कुछ basic data types आप उनको कह सकते हो कि जो पीछे यानी कि आपके C हो या फिर C++ यानी कि the backward compatible languages whatever we have, तो उनके अंदर भी आपको कहीं ना कहीं इन्हीं type of data types वहां पे show जरूर होंगे. So these are called as the primitive types. कोई भी क्लास टाइप का होगा, क्लास टाइप का we generally call it as a reference types. So what Java did is for all the existing primitive types, जितने भी existing primitive types के data types है, for every single primitive data type, Java has provided a class for it. For every single primitive data type, Java has provided a class for it. यानी कि जैसे बुलियन नाम का प्रिमिटिव डेटा टाइप है तो उसके लिए क्लास है, कैरेक्टर नाम का एक डेटा टाइप है तो उसके लिए भी एक क्लास है. ऑल दीज क्लासेस दैट एक्चुअली रिप्रेजेंट्स दिस प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स थ्रू दिस क्लास आर कॉल्ड एज wrapper क्लासेस. यानी कि ऐसे क्लासेस, ऐसे रेफरेंस टाइप्स जो कि बनाए गए हैं विच रिप्रेजेंट्स एक्चुअली योर प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स are all called as wrapper classes. जरा यहाँ पे चेक करते हैं. Let's go into the documentation and let's see what all wrapper classes are. See this. Go into the package called as java.lang, and into the java.lang you will find it out there is a class called as a boolean. There is a class called as a byte. There is a class called as a character. If you just scroll down, you will find it out there is a class called as a double. There is a class called as a float. There is a class called as an integer. A class called as a long. That means for every single primitive type, there is a class that is present in Java. And these classes that actually represent your primitive types are all called as wrapper classes. इन्हें कहा जाता है wrapper classes first of all. So let me put down the heading over here. First of all, what we are going to call it as a wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. So what are wrapper classes? The classes that are defined for every single data type. We could say every single primitive data type. Every single primitive data type in Java. So what are wrapper classes? The classes that are defined for every single primitive data type in Java. जैसे अगर आपके पास primitive data type int है तो उसका wrapper class है integer. If you have a primitive data type called as a double, so the wrapper class that is present is called as a double. If you have primitive data type that is character, तो उसका जो wrapper class है it is the character. तो इसे सभी wrapper classes आपके यहाँ पे present है. All these wrapper classes have a kind of a hierarchy. All these wrapper classes have a kind of a hierarchy. So I am going to draw that hierarchy for you क्योंकि ये hierarchy कहीं ना कहीं आगे हमारे लिए important भी है. This hierarchy is also important for us. Maybe not today, but maybe later on. So let me say it like this. The first class that we have is called as the number class. हमारे पास एक number class है. Maybe I will draw all the three. Maybe I do have the space, so I will do it like this. Maybe इसको थोड़ा सा नीचे कर देता हूँ. I'm just going to copy paste it. So first we are going to say this is the object class. ये एक हायरार्की है, यानी कि कौन से क्लास का कौन सा डिराइव्ड क्लास है, किसी का हायरार्की है जो प्रेजेंट है. आई एम गोइंग टू शो इट टू यू. So what we have is first of all is the object class. Object class के बाद we have let's say this as a boolean and we have is this character like this and maybe we have the numbers. So यहाँ पे है first of all what we have got is the boolean. ये भी एक wrapper class है, नंबर भी एक क्लास है एंड कैरेक्टर एक wrapper class है. अब इस नंबर के we have got some of the sub classes which are going to be like this. So maybe I can copy this, so I can paste it over here. So this is going to be 1 2, you can say it like this, 3. I can copy it actually. Maybe I can copy this like this. So a bit small, I'm just going to do it like this ताकि ये फिट हो सके एक ही लाइन में like this. Good to see that it does fit over here. A bit bigger. So what we have got, the first one is going to be the byte, which is again a wrapper class. We have a short, which is again a wrapper class. Then we have the integer, which is again a wrapper class. We have the long, which is again a wrapper class. We have the float, which is again a wrapper class. We have a double, which is again a wrapper class. So all these are actually the wrapper classes. So number is the super class, or you could say the base class of all these integral and floating point wrapper classes. तो इनका वो number जो है, it is the base class, or you could say it as a super class of it. So do draw the hierarchy. Anyhow, I'm going to share this part with you. वैसे भी मैं आपके साथ ये share करने ही वाला हूँ, but still. So I can draw it like this, not this. So this is the object. Object के ही I could say we have this character as well as boolean, which are the subclasses, or you could call it as a derived classes. And then you can say that is number के we have these subclasses like this. So maybe you call it as a double, maybe you call it as a float, maybe you can call it as a long, maybe the integer, maybe the short, and finally maybe it is going to be the byte like this. So this is the hierarchy that we have. ऑब्जेक्ट इज द सुपरमोस्ट क्लास जिसके तीन सब क्लासेस है और यू कैन से डिराइव्ड क्लासेस है, बुलियन, नंबर एंड कैरेक्टर. And for this number again we have the subclasses called as a byte, short, integer, long, float and double. You can see the exact hierarchy. आप exact hierarchy भी यहाँ पे check कर सकते हो. So if you look at the long का जो super class है it is number और number आता है object से. So object, number and long series. Object, number and then long. This is the hierarchy. So those who know the inheritance, you can just understand it. What I'm talking about, the base class, the derived class, the super class, the subclass. If you don't know it, just imagine it right now. So whenever we are going to complete the inheritance part, hierarchy part, again we will be discussing the same thing. So maybe I will be showing you what is multi-level inheritance, what is hierarchical inheritance. So उस वक्त again this diagram I'm going to show it to you from this day too. So don't worry. जिनको नहीं पता है, don't take tension. You will be getting those things when we are going to learn the hierarchy. लेकिन जिनको पता है, you can just take this into the consideration that this is the hierarchy that you must be knowing. So if you look at any of the parts, so you can just go into the particular, let's say not this one, you can go into the class called as this where is this integer. हाँ, look at this. So if you look at this integer जो हम लोग int num1 num2 define करते हैं, so for that primitive type we have a proper class called as the integer class. Now this integer class is a subclass of number, or you could say this is the derived class from this base class called as a number. This number is been derived from this object class. So this is the hierarchy that has been present over here. Not only that, if you check, this is going to be the number which is the derived class of this object. यानी कि ये hierarchy already यहाँ पे present है. It is present in Java. I just have shown this with these blocks. This is already present over there. So if you look at this Boolean, number and character, these are the categories, or we could say these are the subclasses of this object class. और ऐसे ही कुछ कैटेगरीज आपने इन प्रिमिटिव्स में भी देखे होंगे. हैव यू सीन दिस कैटेगरीज इनटू द प्रिमिटिव्स? Boolean, character, integral and floating point. So when you were converting between the character to any other type, I was telling you this part. So इसके ऊपर मैं बता रहा था, like the boolean cannot be converted to any other type. यानी कि boolean को number या character में आप convert नहीं कर सकते. Character can be converted to the number type. See this type I am talking about. इन types में convert किया जा सकता है, लेकिन that is type conversion. लेकिन अगर आप primitives के बीच में conversion करोगे, we generally call it as widening and narrowing. लेकिन characters के लेके आओगे तो हम लोग उसको क्या कहते हैं? Type conversion कहते हैं. So basis on this, I was explaining you those concepts. So ये पता होना क्यों जरूरी है? Because on this basis we are going to understand the further examples, or we could say the further concepts that the Java has developed. When I was explaining you about the boxing and unboxing concept, कि वो boxing और unboxing क्या होता है? Widening, narrowing समझ आ चुका है. Typecasting we have got those things. Narrowing, widening is like converting between the primitive type itself. Primitive type itself. Now we are trying to convert a primitive type to its respective, we could say reference type or any other type. Once again, I'm going to repeat what I'm trying to say is now I'm going to convert a primitive type of value. Now I'm going to convert a primitive type of value into the non-primitive type. अब ये जितने भी wrapper classes है, what you're able to see it over here, all these are nothing but wrapper classes. Wrapper classes. So is it a class? Yes. So if it is a class, all these are reference types. All these are reference types. ये सभी reference types के बन चुके हैं. Now because all these are of reference types, now you can even create the references of it. आप इनके references create कर सकते. What you are creating so far, यानी कि जब आप ऐसे लिख रहे थे, int n1 जब लिख रहे थे, what you are creating was a variable. आप क्या क्रिएट कर रहे थे? वेरिएबल क्रिएट कर रहे थे. वेरिएबल किसका? एक प्रिमिटिव टाइप का. नाउ इफ आई से इंटीजर i1, if I say integer i1, what this becomes is a reference. See the difference. दिखने में सिमिलर दिखेगा. अरे सर ये तो क्या हुआ? ये तो क्लास है. दिस इज जस्ट अ क्लास फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर प्रिमिटिव टाइप. इट इज अ रैपर क्लास. हाँ क्लास है तभी तो what you are creating is a reference. It is a class. That's why a variable of a class that you create becomes a reference. It does not becomes a simple variable. It becomes a reference. Now what happens when you create a reference is what you know it from this diagram. तो आपको diagram से पता चलेगा. When you say it like this, when you say int n1, so that means within the main you are creating a local variable. So when you create a local variable, what happens is the memory is allocated on the stack section. So as we are aware about, what happens are these two sections that are available with us. Maybe I will draw it once again. The line is not straight. So yes. So look at this. We have got these two sections. One is the stack section, another is the heap section. Whenever you say int n1 means that the memory for this n1 will be allocated on the stack section where you can start keeping the values directly inside it. यानी कि आप लोकली जो स्टैक सेक्शन पे क्रिएटेड वेरिएबल्स है इनके अंदर आप डायरेक्टली वैल्यूज रख सकते हो. यानी कि अगर मैं कहता हूं n1 इक्वल्स टू 10, दैट मींस दिस वैल्यू विल बी केप्ट डायरेक्टली इनसाइड दिस. ये वैल्यू 10 इस स्टैक सेक्शन के ऊपर विद इन द स्टैक सेक्शन इट इज गोइंग टू बी केप्ट. Now, if I call about this second statement, that is integer I1, this is a reference. This is not a normal variable now. This is a variable of a class which is called as a reference. So references gets a space on the stack section. References कहाँ पे बने? Stack section पे बने. So this is going to be the, let's say, I1 that I have created, which is going to be of type integer. Now, can you tell me what does a reference store? Does it store a value or does it store an address? रेफरेंस क्या स्टोर करता है? We have already discussed about what does a reference store. Very good. Reference stores the address. It does not store the value. So for this reference, what you need to say is you have to say I1 equals to new integer like this. You have to create the object over here and then you have to pass the value to it like this. What you have to say is you have to say new integer into the bracket 10. That means first of all you have to create an object of it. आपको एक object create करना पड़ेगा and in this object you are going to say this is new integer. Whatever the object that you have created, you are storing the 10 inside it, which is going to have the address something like this. So maybe I could say 0x200, which is going to be stored inside this reference. So ये reference के अंदर store हुआ. So this is the particular, let's say I1, which is a reference pointing at the object created on the heap section. See the difference between a variable and a reference that you are creating. Maybe I can copy this entire part and I just can keep it over here, right over here, I could say. So maybe this is going to be the tag like this. See the difference. One is created directly on the stack where the value has been kept, and another which is a reference that is being stored onto the stack section where the object is being created on the heap section. That's the difference between the local variable of a primitive type and a local variable of a reference type. ये reference type का एक local variable है, reference बना है, and this is a primitive type का एक variable. इसका stack section पे memory मिलेगा, value भी वहीं पे store होगा, ये reference stack पे बनेगा, object heap पे बनेगा, and the value is going to be stored on the heap section. That's first of all the difference. Now the questions come. So why it is required? If I was having the integer as a variable, if I was having this primitive type, then why wrapper classes? Why wrapper classes? The biggest requirement is when you start working with the collection framework. When you start working with the collection framework in Java, so in collection framework, you cannot create the collections of the primitive types. Primitive types के collection create नहीं हो सकते. Collections can be created only for the reference types. Collection framework के अंदर whether you want to create the list, whether you want to create the linked list, whether you want to create anything that cannot be created for the primitive types, it has to be created for the reference types. वो reference types के लिए ही बनेंगे. And because our entire goal, or we could say the Java that we generally use is because for the collection framework, because for the different collections that the Java has provided, you cannot work with this. आप इनके साथ काम नहीं कर सकते, primitives के साथ काम नहीं कर सकते. It has to be a reference type, and that is the reason why we have to use these wrapper classes. This is one of the reasons why wrapper classes. One of the reasons I'm saying. Another reasons is to provide you different utility methods that are present inside this. जैसे basic जो required methods होते हैं, टाइप कन्वर्जन के मेथड्स होते हैं, ऑल दोज आर केप्ट इनटू द रिस्पेक्टिव रैपर क्लासेस. तो ये मेथड्स का इंप्लीमेंटेशन भी इन रैपर क्लासेस के थ्रू दिया जा चुका है. दैट्स व्हाई द कंसेप्ट ऑफ रैपर क्लासेस डू एग्जिस्ट इन जावा बिकॉज ऑफ दिस रीजंस. Now why we should be knowing this is because there are going to be the type conversions between the primitives and the non-primitives. That means one type, that is a primitive type, is anyhow going to be converted into the reference types, into the particular, let's say, वैल्यू टाइप्स टू रेफरेंस टाइप्स और प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स टू नॉन प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स. समवेयर डाउन द लाइन ये कन्वर्जेंस होने ही वाले. नाउ सी हाउ द कन्वर्जेंस आर गोइंग टू बी. So for example, let's say I'm going to come up with the same example. So here we have something called as a n1. n1 क्या है? n1 एक primitive type का value है, primitive type. So this n1 I want to store it inside an another reference called as a i2. I want to store it inside an another reference called as i2, where I'm going to say equals to new integer into the bracket n1. Can you see this? क्या मैं n1 को directly यहाँ पे integer i2 के अंदर पास कर रहा हूँ? Yes. When I am passing it, I am passing it when I am creating the object of the integer. जब मैं इसका object यहाँ पे create कर रहा हूँ. So at the time of object creation, अब मेरे पास कोई value नहीं है. What I am passing is this n1. That means I am saying convert this particular variable, यानी कि have whatever is present inside this n1, convert it from the primitive types to the non-primitive types. Convert it from the primitive types to the non-primitive types. तो ऐसे टाइप ऑफ कन्वर्जेंस को जनरली कहा जाता है बॉक्सिंग. ऐसे टाइप के कन्वर्जन जब होंगे दैट इज कॉल्ड एज अ बॉक्सिंग. सो मे बी आई एम गोइंग टू मेंशन इट ओवर हियर. कन्वर्टिंग द टाइप ऑफ converting the primitive type to non-primitive type. Primitive type to non-primitive type is called as boxing. Is called as boxing. Converting the primitive type to non-primitive type is called as the boxing. बॉक्सिंग के केस में सी लिसन टू दिस. बॉक्सिंग के केस में सिर्फ ओनली कन्वर्टिंग इट फ्रॉम अ प्रिमिटिव टू इट्स रिस्पेक्टिव रैपर क्लास नहीं होता है. इट इज नॉट ओनली अबाउट कन्वर्टिंग अ प्रिमिटिव टाइप टू इट्स रिस्पेक्टिव रैपर क्लास. ऐसा नहीं होता है. लुक एट दिस स्ट्रिंग. मे बी आई कुड से s1 इक्वल्स टू डबल कोट्स में 10 अगर मैं लिखता हूं. इफ आई कीप इट लाइक दिस, व्हाट डू यू थिंक व्हाट इट इज? ये स्ट्रिंग s1 इक्वल्स टू 10. ये 10 क्या हुआ? 10 is the actual number, but because I have kept into the double quotes, ये क्या बना है? ये string बना है. What it is? It is actually a string value. तो ऐसे कोई भी particular types किसी भी दूसरे reference type, string क्या है? String is again a class. This is a class type in Java. तो ये classes के अंदर, classes के references के अंदर अगर मैं ऐसे कोई भी particular let's say primitive types की value रखूंगा, so these conversions are called as boxings. इन्हें कहा जाता है boxing. If I want to convert a reference type to a primitive type, reference type to a primitive type, तो उसे हम लोग जनरली कहते हैं unboxing. See, first we have the boxing and we have the unboxing. Boxing जहां पे conversion होता है primitive से non primitives में, value type से reference types के अंदर, value type से reference types के अंदर. See this example जो अभी भी मैंने लिया था. So I am going to say string s1 equals to 10. Can you tell me, is this 10 a string or a number? ये 10 यहाँ पे क्या है? Is it a string or a number? What is this? Is it a string or a number? अरे string है कि number है? It is a string actually, double quotes के अंदर है. So what I want is, I want to convert this 10 into a number. I want to convert this 10 into a number. So right now if you check this out, जरा आप यहाँ पे चेक करके देखो. ठीक है? I am going to say system.out.println, it is going to be s1 plus 20. Look at this. मैंने क्या लिखा है? s1 plus 20. s1 के अंदर है 10 and I am just going to add 20 to it. मैं इसको 20 ऐड करने वाला हूँ. Let me run this particular code and you can observe what I get into the output. जरा आउटपुट को चेक करते हैं. So what you get into the output is something called as 1020. अरे 1020 क्यों? 30 क्यों नहीं मिला? Because ये जो s1 है 10, it is a string और string इस 20 के साथ हो चुका है concatenate, यानी कि both of them are being concatenated. So what if I want their addition as 10 plus 20 equals to 30? If I want that particular addition, that means I need to convert this string into a integer value. So to convert it, what I can do is something like this. I can say it like this. Integer, maybe I could say n2 equals to integer dot parse int, and you can pass that particular s1 to it. See the use cases of the wrapper classes I am showing it to you. So the first use case, you can find it out where the primitive types can be converted into the non-primitive types. उसके लिए you are using a wrapper class, respective wrapper class, और उसके हिसाब से you are just converting. Second, if there is a string value and if that string value consists of an integer value inside it, inside that string, that can be again converted back to the primitive types with the help of the wrapper classes. Again, अब conversion क्या हो रहा है? You are converting a non-primitive type. You are converting a value. You are creating a reference type into the value type. You are converting the reference type into the value type. And when you are converting a reference type to a value type, we call it as unboxing. इसे कहा जाता है unboxing. So where it is getting converted? Right now we have seen the convergence. इससे पहले we have seen the convergence between or within the primitive types, where the integral was getting converted to floating point or floating point to integral type. This was happening. Now we are going across it. Now we are saying we are going to go from primitive to non-primitive. We are going to convert it from primitive to non-primitive or from non-primitive to primitive. It will be either value to reference or reference to value. So these are type of convergence if that is happening. So here we call it as boxing or unboxing. We will call it as a boxing or unboxing. So if the conversion does happen from primitive to non-primitive, we will call it as boxing. And if we do it from the reference to primitive, it is called as the unboxing. तो इसे कहा जाता है unboxing. So पहले is the boxing and unboxing clear to you? कौन से टाइप के कन्वर्जेंस की मैं बात कर रहा हूं? Is it clear first of all? Then I will take all the questions. First, is the topic clear to you? Boxing and unboxing. It is just the conversion. Conversion कहां से कहां पे हो रहा है? If it is happening within the primitive types, it can be either a type conversion or narrowing and widening. If this is happening across, let's say primitive and non-primitives, so it can be either boxing or it can be unboxing. It can be unboxing. So it can be either from primitives to non-primitives, boxing, or from non-primitives to primitives, which is unboxing. Are these first concepts clear to you? बॉक्सिंग अनबॉक्सिंग, हाँ, कहाँ पे यूज होता है, क्या यूज होता है, क्यों यूज होता है, ऑल दिस थिंग्स यू विल बी एबल टू सी दिस. ये सारी चीजें दिखेंगी. जस्ट हैव सम पेशेंस. आर द कांसेप्ट्स फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल क्लियर? वेरी गुड. Now let me take some of the questions. Like, what is collection framework? Collection framework is a framework in Java that we generally use to store the data, to use the data structures actually. So जितने भी डेटा स्ट्रक्चर्स आपने पढ़े होंगे, so all those data structures का actual implementation जावा में ऑलरेडी देख के रखा है, and that is what we call it as a collection framework. So उसके लिए हमें ये सारी चीजें लगती भी है. Parsent is a method that is present inside the integer wrapper class. Let me show it to you. So if you go into the integer as a wrapper class, so inside this class you can just scroll down and what you can find is a method called as a parsent, which accepts a string value and it helps you to convert it to the primitive type. तो ये एक ऐसी मेथड है इस integer wrapper class के अंदर which is going to help you for the conversion from non-primitive to primitive types, and that is what we have used it on line number 15. Actually this is the one. अनबॉक्सिंग, यानी कि अनबॉक्सिंग में करूं कैसे? हाउ शुड आई डू द अनबॉक्सिंग? तो अनबॉक्सिंग करने के लिए दिस इज द मेथड दैट आई एम यूजिंग फ्रॉम द वेब क्लास. ये पता कैसे चला? सो आई हैव गॉन थ्रू द डॉक्यूमेंटेशन. मैंने डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को पढ़ा है. दैट्स ठीक है. अनबॉक्सिंग इज अ कन्वर्जन फ्रॉम दिस. ये देखो यहाँ पे मैं डायग्राम ड्रॉ करता हूँ. सो मे बी आई विल ड्रॉ इट लाइक दिस. सो सपोज यू आर कन्वर्टिंग इट फ्रॉम दिस प्रिमिटिव से लेके अगर आप नॉन प्रिमिटिव में आते हो, ठीक है, प्रिमिटिव से अगर आप नॉन प्रिमिटिव में आते हो, सो इसे आप क्या कहोगे? व्हाट यू विल कॉल इट एज? इसे क्या कहोगे? प्रिमिटिव से नॉन प्रिमिटिव में, प्रिमिटिव से नॉन प्रिमिटिव में. वेरी गुड, यू कॉल इट एज बॉक्सिंग. वेरी गुड, यू कॉल इट एज बॉक्सिंग. लेकिन अगर वही सपोज मैं नॉन प्रिमिटिव से प्रिमिटिव में जाता हूं तो इफ आई गो इट ओवर हियर, वेरी गुड, इसे आप क्या कहोगे? दैट इज वेयर यू आर गोइंग टू कॉल इट एज अनबॉक्सिंग. This is what we are going to call it as unboxing. यानी कि कहां से कहां के बीच में कन्वर्जन करना, फ्रॉम वेयर यू आर कन्वर्टिंग. सिमिलरली चलो फिर से, ठीक है, यहां से सपोज आप इंटीग्रल से फ्लोटिंग पॉइंट में कर रहे हो तो, या फिर फ्लोटिंग पॉइंट से इंटीग्रल में कर रहे हो, इट इज गोइंग टू बी कंसेप्ट ऑफ नैरोइंग एंड वाइडनिंग. कंसेप्ट ऑफ नैरोइंग एंड वाइडनिंग. अगर आप कैरेक्टर का किसी भी और टाइप में कर रहे हो या फिर किसी और टाइप को कैरेक्टर में कर रहे हो, सो अगेन द कंसेप्ट ऑफ टाइप कंसेप्ट ऑफ टाइप कन्वर्जन. यहाँ पे टाइप कन्वर्जन हो रहा है, यहाँ पे आपका वाइडनिंग नैरोइंग है, हियर इट इज वाइडनिंग नैरोइंग एंड हियर इट इज बॉक्सिंग अनबॉक्सिंग। यानी कि वेयर यू आर कन्वर्टिंग इट, where the conversions are happening, so there you are going to call it by that particular name. See, all these are important things with respective with the interviews, you can say, or if suppose you are going to give some of the exams on the basis of Java, maybe certification exams, वगैरह, if you are talking about, so there these small terms are really important. In general day-to-day development, if you are like looking only for the development perspective, so I am going to develop the applications, I am going to be a developer, so at that time you don't have to be such kind of generalized form you have to use. No, you have to use just the general terms, like okay, there is just the type conversion, I'm converting this type to another type, that's it. So as a type of like too much of information, like हाँ ये इसको ऐसे ही कहेंगे, this will be called as binding, this will be kind of marrying, such concepts are not required while development. While development, I'm saying. But yes, if you are going to give an interview, if you are going to give some exams over this, then these concepts are must, because on this the questions might be asked. See, that's why I'm explaining you this. Otherwise, as a development perspective, we never say it. हम लोग कभी ऐसे नहीं कहते कि ये इसी दिस here it is boxing and unboxing that is happening. No, we just say okay, we have to convert it from primitive to non-primitive. We just say it in general terms. We just say okay, now let us convert the type, let us convert it to double, or let us convert it to this. So that's the general statement that we generally give. These are just for exam oriented or interview oriented things that you need to understand if you are going to give it. So let me know any questions onto this. These examples I'm going to show you कि कहाँ पे ये किया जाता है, where it has been done actually. I'm going to show it to you why this concept of boxing and unboxing are important. I'm going to show it to you. But let me cover up this concept first. Let me finish this concept first, and then I'm going to show it to you. फिर मैं आपको दिखाने वाला हूँ where it has been used. Yes. So after the unboxing, let me say after the unboxing, I'm going to just print that value. So maybe I can say it like this. So S1 की जगह पे now I'm going to say this is going to be the N2. Look at this, N2 is going to be an integer. Here S1 is kind of a string. So the first line is going to print me 1020 and the second line is going to print me actually the value, or we could say the arithmetic operation of those two numbers, that is going to be 30. चलो वेरी गुड. एक क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे पूछा गया, एंड आई थिंक इट माइट बी फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू एंड ऑल्सो बिकॉज दिस स्टेटमेंट आई हैव ऑलरेडी सेन इट अर्लियर. यहाँ पे एक आपको लाइन दिख रही है छोटी सी ऑन दैट इंटीजर, दैट इज अ स्ट्राइक थ्रू, दैट यू आर एबल टू सी दैट. So that strike through generally tells you that it is a deprecated method, or we could say it is deprecated into the further versions of Java. See, when we chose that particular Java version, I said please do choose Java 8 because there are some features that are still available into it. The way that I can just work with it, because you can see there is no errors inside this, but it is saying this has been deprecated. So if you look at the Java 8 documentation, if you look at the Java 8 version, I'm saying Java 1.8 जो आपने choose किया था while creating this project, Java 8 version. So in Java 8 version, we do have the constructor called as an integer that accepts one value. So that is present. But if you go for the Java 11 version, अगर आप Java का वही 11 version के पास जाओगे, and if you open the same class, the documentation is bit different as compared to the Java 8 documentation. But if you go for the Java 11, you go into the integer wrapper class and you will find it out the method which says deprecated. Can you see that? Java 8 के अंदर, so there is no such particular thing called as a deprecated over here. But if you look at this Java 11 documentation, it says that it is been deprecated. Deprecated in the sense now you should be not using it. आपने ये constructor use नहीं करना चाहिए. If I click on this, जरा चेक करो वो कब depreciate हुआ था. So it says कि it has been deprecated since Java 9 version. यानी कि Java 8 के बाद Java 9 का version जब launch हुआ था, so this method has been deprecated. And it is saying it is a rarely appropriate to use this particular constructor. And so on and so it has given some of the new things over here. It says construct a newly allocated integer object that represents specified integer value, and so on. So the documentations are provided over here. So that means should we not use this particular part? So yes, after Java 8, यानी कि Java 8 के बाद अगर आप Java 11 में काम करो, if you are working in Java 11, whenever you are going to join the company, then at that time you should not use this constructor. तो हम लोग क्या करें सर? In this case, what we should be doing then? What you should be doing is something like this. Let me copy this program, or let me create another program over here. Maybe I could say program 05. See this, what it should be doing. So suppose I have this n1 value and I want to convert that particular n1 value inside this integer I1. मुझे अगर इसमें convert करना है, then no need to say it like this new integer. Directly say I1 equals to n1, and that's it. It has been converted. So from Java 8 onwards, they say now we are going to create it automatically. Now we are going to convert that particular primitive types to the non-primitive types automatically. You don't have to call any constructor. आपको यहाँ पे explicit constructor call करने की जरूरत नहीं है. And here they call it as auto boxing. इसे वो लोग कहते हैं auto boxing. So from Java 8 onwards, what they changed is like they have provided the feature of auto boxing and auto unboxing. ये दोनों भी फीचर्स उन्होंने दे के रखे एंड दैट इज हाउ इट वर्क्स. सो ऑटो बॉक्सिंग इज लाइक डायरेक्टली कन्वर्टिंग द प्रिमिटिव टू नॉन प्रिमिटिव विदाउट कॉलिंग एनी मेथड्स. बिना कुछ मेथड क्रिएट के अगर आप ऐसे करोगे तो उसे कहा जाएगा ऑटो बॉक्सिंग. नॉट ओनली दैट, लुक एट दिस integer is a wrapper class. Maybe why integer? Let's go for a double also. So maybe I could say double d1 equals to 12.34. See, what I'm using is a double, which is a wrapper class. And what I want to do is I want to convert it to the primitive type now. Convert it to the primitive type. So I'm going to say this is going to be the d2 equals to d1. I'm going to say it like this. d1 kaho ya fir aap n2 kaho, whatever you want, you can just say it. Is the entire conversion of non-primitive type to its respective primitive type, is it been done directly? Yes. Am I calling any method called as a parseInt value of? No, I'm not calling any methods. So because it has been done directly, this is called as auto unboxing. So if the conversion is been done automatically by assigning the value without calling any methods, so such particular conversions are called as auto. It is going to be auto boxing or it is going to be auto unboxing. That's how it works. So because of the we could say version changes, again we have the concepts called as auto boxing and auto unboxing. तो अब यहाँ पे constructors की जरूरत नहीं है. So initially we used to have these constructors to convert that particular type into this type. Now the constructors are not required. The conversions can be done directly. तो conversions directly किए जा सकते हैं. Auto boxing, auto unboxing. Let me know. Any questions so far? I'm going to show you the we could say a small example. I could say I can show it to you that why this conversions you must be knowing. ये conversions क्यों पता होने चाहिए? I will show you the example. Any other questions onto this? No? Then let me show you one example. So for this, you have to go, first of all, because this is the second day, we cannot have an explicitly and heavy example, but a very simple example I will show you, where you are going to get or where you are going to understand two concepts over here. The first concept you will understand about the concept of boxing and unboxing. You will get that information over here. And second concept that you will get to know about this string ARGs. यानी कि एक ही तीर में दो निशाने. So where you are going to understand these two concepts, we are going to take this example. So make sure you are attentive over here and understand this example. So what I'm going to do is in this particular, let's say VS Code itself, because I am not going to use this particular ID right now. I want to go for the VS Code for the programming now. So I want to create a particular, let's say a program. So maybe I will call it as a program.java file. A simple .java file I have created. The name of the file is program. So that means the class that I'm going to have is going to be a program class. This is going to be a program class, inside which I want to have a main function or a main method which accepts one argument of type string array. And what I want to do is in this particular, let's say program, I just want to do the addition of two numbers. मुझे दो numbers का addition करना है. That is 10 plus 20, 30. I want to show the addition. But first, let us execute this program. Run करने के लिए, as you all know, we have to compile this code. For the code compilation, the commands are really simple. You have to say Java C and name of this particular .java file. So you have to say Java C, name of the Java file. We are going to say program.java, and the moment it is going to execute, we could say compiled, we have to execute it by saying java and the name of the dot class file. यहाँ पे उसकी dot class file बन जाएगी that we have created and it is going to say hello world. Now what I need to do is I need to do the addition of two numbers. So it is going to be, see it like this. Maybe I could say integer n1, this is going to be my first number, integer n2 is going to be my second number. What I need is the addition of these two numbers. So maybe I could say it like this, integer result equals to n1 plus n2. This is the result that I want, and this result I want to show it over here. Sys out system.out.println, this is going to be the addition equals to plus, this is the result like this. So मुझे यहाँ पे क्या शो करना है, मुझे यहाँ पे रिजल्ट शो करना है. फिलहाल n1 के अंदर क्या है, लेट्स से 0, n2 के अंदर क्या है, फिलहाल 0. n1 and n2 result is going to be 0, no doubt. This n1 and n2 I want to pass it to this particular, let's say, application through the command line, not from the user, through the command line when I am executing this code. Means like this. Hey, look at this program. So when I am going to execute this program, जब मैं program को execute करने वाला हूँ Java program, here itself I am going to pass this 10 and 20. Can you see this? What I am passing? मैं यहाँ पे क्या पास कर रहा हूँ? 10 and 20 यहाँ पे मैं पास कर रहा हूँ. I am passing 10 and 20. Hit enter and it should show me the addition as 30. ये जो particular arguments, these values that I am passing it while executing this program are called as command line arguments. The values that we pass while executing these programs right over here are called as command line arguments. And these command line arguments are cached inside this string array. These particular command line arguments are cached where? Inside this string array. Now, once they are being cached inside this string array, what I need to do is I just need to fetch those values over here and I need to do the addition. I just need to perform the addition. So now see, instead of saying this like this, int n1, n1 plus n2, first I want to, before going for this entire result, I just want to look for what is present inside these arguments, what is present inside this array of strings. Right now I am passing 10 and 20. मैं यहाँ पे दो values pass करूँ. So I just want to print those values. So I'm going to say system.out.println. This is going to be args of 0. Args of 0 in the sense whatever the array that we have, the 0th index, whatever the value is kept, just display to me. Compile this code and just try to execute it and you will find it out. 0th, we could say index के ऊपर हमें 10 मिल चुका है. यानी कि the first value that you have passed as a command line argument is been captured at index 0. So the second value is captured at index 1. Whatever those particular, let's say, indexes are, आप उन indexes को जरा print करके देखो. You just print those indexes and you just see this. Maybe I'm going to compile this code. Maybe I'm going to once again execute this and you will find it out. 10 and 20 are the values that I have received on these particular indexes, which is kept inside this array of strings. So why this array of string is being used is because if you want to execute a particular program by passing the command line arguments, अगर pass करना है तो, so those particular arguments are going to be cached inside this array. तो वो यहाँ पे catch होंगे. So that is the purpose of this string args. So on, let's say, day 1, those who are having the question, those who asked me, sir, why string args, why this array has been given over here, what is the need of this array? This is the need of this array. So if you are executing without an ID, you are not passing or you're not creating any scanner objects, you want to execute your code with the help of command line arguments, then where those command line arguments will go, वो कहाँ पे catch होंगे? So those will be cached inside this array. तो उसी के लिए जावा ने ये already आपको array बना के दिया है. This is where the array has already been created, and this is where you will get those values. Now whatever these values are going to be, it can be anything. It is not about only 10 and 20. Maybe मैं ऐसे भी pass कर सकता हूँ. Look at this. Maybe I can say Rohan. Maybe I can say Paramne. Hit enter. You will get those values. Not only that, I can execute it once again where I can say Rohan. This is going to be, let's say, 100. You just hit enter. You get those values. Why? Because it is everything is string. String के अंदर कुछ भी हो सकता है. It can be a number. It can be a sentence. It can be a word. It can be a character. It can be anything that you can store inside a string. तो string के अंदर कुछ भी, यानी कि string array के अंदर there can be anything. So now my goal over here My goal is to pass two integer values 10 and 20 and to get the addition. My goal is to pass the two integer values and to get the addition over here. But the problem over here is whatever the integer values that I'm passing, it has been converted into the string type. Listen to it. Whatever the integer values that I'm passing, whatever the primitive types I'm passing, it has been converted into the non-primitive types. What type of conversion do you call it as? इसको आप क्या कहोगे? I am passing 10 and 20, an integer type, the values of integer type, and it has been converted into the string type. What type of conversion it is internally? Very good. It is boxing. यानी कि यहाँ पे already boxing हो चुका. Am I calling any methods? No. Automatically done. Auto boxing. Automatically हो रहा है. So auto boxing already हो भी चुका है. Boxing is already done for me. Even I am passing an integer values, internally it has been stored inside the string. Now because it is stored inside the strings, the values are been boxed. Now what I need to do is I need to convert these values back into the primitive types. I want to convert these values back into the primitive types. Conversion of non-primitive types. See, these are of string types. Conversion of non-primitive types to the primitive types. What do you call it as? इसे क्या कहोगे? What do you call it as? Correct. Unboxing. See, this is the use case that is in front of you. Why to do the unboxing? Why to do these conversions? Because of the need that I have. So generally, when I'm executing a command line argument, all the particular values are being boxed. All the values are kept in the string type of thing. So because it is of string type, now I need to convert it back to the primitive types. So that means I have to do the unboxing. Now why I'm doing unboxing? क्योंकि boxing already हो चुका है. Boxing is already been done. Now do the unboxing. Can you tell me the step to do the unboxing? How to do the unboxing? How can I get the first number? If I say it like this, args of 0, what do you think? What it is going to return? ये args of 0 मुझे क्या return करेगा? Is it going to return me an integer or is it going to return me a string? अरे ये क्या return करेगा args of 0? Arguments of 0 क्या return करेगा? It is going to return me an integer value. So अगर वो integer value होगा, अरे integer value होगा तो वो डायरेक्टली होना चाहिए. डायरेक्टली होना चाहिए. जरा चेक करो क्या वो सच में इंटीजर वैल्यू है क्या? args of 0 प्लस args of 1. जरा चेक करो यहाँ. Is it integer value first of all? Compile this particular code. Compile this particular code. पहले कोड को कंपाइल करो. चेंजेस के बाद you have to compile this code. Hey, can you see this? Can you see this? args of 0 क्या हुआ? हाँ, यहाँ से a गायब हो चुका है. Wait a minute. Compile this particular code and see this. Please check this out. Check the output. 10, 20. Hey, what I'm getting? अरे ये concatenate हो चुका है. Concatenate हुआ इसका मतलब क्या है? This args and args of 1, are they returning me integer or are they returning me and string value over here? अरे array कौन सा है? array कौन सा string type of है? args यानी कि array of 0 index उठाओगे तो क्या मिलेगा? What you will be getting is a string value actually. So what you are getting is a string value over here. What you are getting over here is a string value. ये दोनों भी string values. String in the sense these are non-primitive types. And these non-primitive types now I need to convert it to the primitive type. तो क्या ये ऐसा direct conversion possible है? Is the direct conversion possible over here? Hey, check this out. Check this out. I run this, or I compile this particular program and it says incompatible types string cannot be converted to int. ये बता भी रहा है कि you cannot convert this particular string into an integer value. So if you need to convert it, you have to do the unboxing. You have to do the unboxing, and to do the unboxing, take the help of this wrapper class. Take the help of this wrapper class. Integer is a wrapper class. Inside this wrapper class, there is a method. What is the name of the method? Name of the method is parseInt. What it takes as an input? It takes an input as a string. Then it takes an argument as a type of string. What it gives you out is an integer value. So this type of conversions has been already implemented into these wrapper classes. Again, the use of wrapper class. See कितने सारे concept हम लोग अब यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं. Whatever the things that we learned over here, what is boxing, what is unboxing, what are the reference types, what are the value types, what are wrapper classes, ये सारे concept अब इस example के अंदर use हो रहे हैं. All these concepts are being applied over here. Internally, you have seen the boxing. Now what we need to do is unboxing. Automatically boxing is done. Now automatically unboxing is not possible. So here you have to do the unboxing. To do the unboxing, what you have to use is the wrapper class over here. So you have to say it like this: integer, which is going to be a wrapper class. So you have to say integer dot parseInt. Integer dot parseInt. Integer is a wrapper class. ParseInt is a method. Integer is a wrapper class. ParseInt is a static method that is present inside the integer class. And inside this, what you need to pass is the string value. So you just have to say args of 0. That's it. What it will return you is an integer that is a primitive type of value. तो यहाँ पे आप क्या कर रहे हो? What you are doing over here is unboxing. Here you are doing the unboxing. Similarly, whatever the thing that you have done for the n1, you have to do it for the n2. So here you can say it like this by saying integer dot parseInt and just pass the args of 1. And you pass the numbers. Now, once you pass the numbers 0 and 1, what you can do is you can get the result now, n1 plus n2, because n1 plus n2 are both of primitive types now. Here also what you have done is unboxing. Maybe let me complete the bracket over here. The bracket is complete. Now, once it is done, once the unboxing is done, what you can do is you can print the result. अब आप यहाँ पे result को भी print कर सकते हो. Let us compile this code now. So this is going to be Java C. Compile this code. Code has been compiled. जाके आप execute करो 1020 and what you get is addition equals to 30. ये 1020 कहाँ से हुआ? So this is the 10 plus 20. ये वाला. So before unboxing it, both of them were strings. So because both of them were strings, so what you used to get is generally concatenation of these two strings. But when I'm converting it to n1 and n2, and then I'm saying n1 plus n2, now what I get is the addition of those two numbers. Why? Because the string has been converted to the integer value. Both the strings are being converted to the respective integer values, where now I can have the arithmetic operations. This is where generally it is being used. यानी कि concept जो है boxing, unboxing, this is where it is being used. Plus result because addition जो है it is a string और string के साथ मुझे concatenate करना है. Look at this, addition equals to 30. So ऐसा अगर आपको message print करना है, if you want to print a message along with a string value, यानी कि जैसे आप printf में format specifiers use करते हो, instead of that what you use over here is plus operator. Plus operator in Java is used for string concatenation. स्ट्रिंग कॉन्केटेनेशन के लिए यूज किया जाता है. वेदर यू कैन से इट लाइक दिस, अगर ऐसा नहीं कहना है तो आप ब्रैकेट में यहाँ पे ऐसे कह सकते हो, n1 plus n2 भी कह सकते हो, इट डजंट मैटर. सो मे बी आई कैन से इट लाइक दिस, कॉपी दिस, पेस्ट इट ओवर हियर. तो मैं यहाँ पे रिजल्ट भी प्रिंट करके दिखाता हूँ एंड आई एम गोइंग टू शो इट लाइक दिस. तो मैं दोनों भी प्रिंट करके दिखाता हूँ. सो रिजल्ट इक्वल्स टू दिस इज गोइंग टू बी द रिजल्ट, या फिर आप n1 plus n2 ऐसे भी कह सकते हो. यू से इट एनी हाउ द वे यू लाइक इट. जस्ट कंपाइल दिस कोड and then execute that code. Hey, look at this. So मुझे addition भी मिल रहा है, मुझे result भी मिल रहा है. So whether you want to show a message along with the expression or you want to show a message with the value that you want to fetch, you can do it anyhow. So whenever any particular result is being appended or we could say is been concatenated with a string, the entire thing becomes a string. तो अब ये पूरी की पूरी एक string बन चुकी है. And that is what you are able to see it over here. So here also plus is actually doing the concatenation. It is not adding those numbers. Why? Because both of them are strings. That is the reason. Yes. Any questions so far? You can go through the code. I will wait for it. Let me know if any questions if you have. How to convert double to double in Java 8? Directly. Directly. Look at this. Example आपके सामने. Auto unboxing. So I have a double, which is a wrapper class D1 having the value 12.34. So can I keep the value directly over here? Yes. Why? Because the constructors are deprecated. Even into the double, the constructors are deprecated. So that is possible. And whatever the reference is storing right now, so the reference is being, we could say auto unboxed, and the value is being stored inside this double into, which is going to be the primitive type. So directly stored हो रहा है automatically done. Auto boxing, auto unboxing. Concepts are applied. Any other questions? You can look at both the examples. Auto unboxing present in Java 8? Not in Java 8, but ये पहले से भी था. So it is not explicitly used, but now it is explicitly used. यानी कि Java 8 के बाद वो यूज करना ही पड़ता है. सो अब हो ही रहा है. सो डेप्रिकेट हो ही चुका है. मेथड्स आर डेप्रिकेटेड, सो ऑटो बॉक्सिंग तो होने ही वाला है. इन द केस ऑफ रैपर क्लासेस एंड द रिस्पेक्टिव प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स. रिस्पेक्टिव प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स और रैपर क्लासेस के बीच में तो होगा ही होगा ऑटो वाला, ऑटो बॉक्सिंग एंड ऑटो अनबॉक्सिंग. In case of different types, maybe string to integer, string to double, double to string, integer to string, maybe you require to call the methods. So there you need to do the manual boxing and manual unboxing. वो करना होगा. Just in case that we have done manual unboxing task, we are saying integer dot parsing and then we are converting. Manual unboxing we are doing. Yes. Any other questions? Lot of concepts as we talked about language fundamentals. तो आज का एजेंडा मैंने कहा था that we are going to talk about language fundamentals. Where it is, here it is. So that is what we have tried to cover a lot of things. So wrapper classes, boxing, unboxing, and so on and so. Now there is a last one more concept that I need to share with you before closing today's session, and that is about taking the input from user. So that is what we definitely need to take this. So where it is using the scanner class. तो हमें ये काम आज करना है. So maybe we have covered this. इसलिए any questions so far? Let me know so that we can go for the next example to understand it. How to do manual boxing unboxing? ये क्या है? Example आपके सामने है. It is not about how to do it in Java 11. It is the concept that do exist even before Java 8. So this is not a concept that belongs to Java 8 or Java 11. No, it is a concept that is been there in Java very long. I think Java 5, Java 6, I exactly don't remember the version. लेकिन ये concept जो technical terms यहाँ पे assign किए गए हैं, ये पहले से है. It is not something that is new over here. So when the wrapper classes concept was introduced, when the collection framework was built, from that time onwards, these concepts do exist. Boxing and unboxing. So boxing and unboxing was done between generally the primitives and the respective wrapper types, and the second type like from string to the, let's say, other primitive types. Because whatever the value that I was getting from, let's say, the console, from, let's say, the command line arguments, all those values were generally stored inside the string. So I need to convert that string type to the other types, to the primitive types. So for these types of conversions, I need to use those methods explicitly, like the methods called as a parsing, like the methods, if it is a double value method called as a parse double. So these methods, if you are calling it, we call it as manual unboxing. So manually आप कर रहे हो क्योंकि आप methods call कर रहे हो. But here if you look at the example that we have done right now, where no any methods are been called, method कहाँ पे call किया? Are you calling any methods over here? Are you calling any constructor over here? No. If you're not using any methods or constructors, that means it is done automatically. Automatically the values are getting converted into the objects. अरे आप इसको ठीक से समझ नहीं पा रहे हो. I think double d1 equals to something something. Double d1 equals to something something. You can see it like this. Double d1 reference बना. Reference in the sense you have to draw the diagram for it like this. Reference, and then where this object is, it 12.34 कहाँ पे store होगा? For that an object needs to be created. Who is creating the object? The Java is creating the object for it. यानी कि ये पूरा part in this one line itself you are creating this particular diagram. So ये पूरा manually हो रहा है, and that is why we say, इसलिए हम लोग कहते हैं कि ये पूरा प्रोसेस जावा करके दे रहा है, इसलिए ऑटो बॉक्सिंग वो करके दे रहा है. बट हियर डबल n2 इक्वल्स टू d1, d1 से क्या हुआ? डायरेक्टली व्हाटएवर द वैल्यू विल बी देयर विल बी केम डायरेक्टली इनसाइड दिस. यानी कि ऑटोमेटिकली क्या हुआ? प्रिमिटिव में कन्वर्ट हो चुका है. Now, is there a method that I'm calling? No. Is there a method you are able to see? No. Because there is no any method, that means this has been done automatically for you by the Java. Auto unboxing has been done. But if you want to do it, methods तो आपके पास है. Look at this. The way we are using those methods. तो मेथड से भी यहाँ पे हो सकता है. ये भी possible. Let me know. Any more questions onto this? So we have covered a lot of part now. We have covered a lot of things over here, where we have even done the class object reference understanding. We have understood what is a class, how to declare a class, how to create the objects, and so and so. Now, one thing that has been remaining, because of which our class was also kind of an incomplete class, you can see that into the except into the display, I haven't written any logic over here. The reason is that I don't have the way to take the input from user. So right now I don't know how to take the input from user. What I'm just using over here is like passing the command line arguments when I'm compiling it from the VS Code. यहाँ से command line arguments pass कर रहा हूँ. Otherwise I'm keeping the value static. What if I want to ask the user to input the values? कि hey user, give me the values, and then I want to store those values. अगर ऐसा काम मुझे करना है, how to do it? So now let us perform this task. इस task को आप थोड़ा सा करते हैं. So for this, what I want to do is I want to create a different program now, or maybe I could say I want to create a different project over here. So maybe I will call it as the demo02. So it's a project create करते हैं demo02. And in this demo02, I'm going to create one class called as a program. So before that, let me close the initial project demo01 को close कर देते हैं because I don't need it. Go into the demo02 and say this is going to be the new and this is a class. Maybe the name of a class that I want to say is going to be a program class. So I could say this is a program. In this program class, I want to say, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. कहाँ पे थे हम लोग? So, we were talking about, we were creating this particular example where we want to accept the values from user. So to accept the values from user, there are multiple ways to do it in Java. तो Java में करने के बहुत सारे तरीके हैं. Generally, if someone has done the Java earlier, they might have used something called as buffered reader, which is not recommended क्योंकि Java 8 से we have a better use, or we have a better class to take the input from users now. Now we don't have to use those buffered readers or to create those objects. यानी कि the objects of the stream classes, I could say, reader and writer classes, I could say. अब उसके ऑब्जेक्ट्स क्रिएट करने की जरूरत नहीं है. वी हैव अ डिफरेंट अप्रोच, वी हैव अ डिफरेंट वे टू डील विद इट नाउ. So see how it is going to be done. So let's say I have this n1, I want to enter it from user, or instead of n1, let us do some good things. I could say what I can say is I'm going to have a name that I want to enter from the user, and I could say I want the age that I want to enter it from the user. So मुझे name चाहिए, age चाहिए, who is going to enter? The user is going to enter. So let us ask, let's say the user to take the input. So how you will ask the user? So you just have to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say enter the name. आप user से name से पूछो. Similarly, what you want to enter is, I could say enter the age. मुझे name enter करना है, age enter करना है. Now how you will enter it? So if you are in C++, if you have done earlier, let's say programming, तो अगर आप let's say C में रहोगे तो you use something called as the scanf to take the input from the console. If you are in C++, you use the object called as the scene, which is an object of iStream. If you are in Java, you use the object of the scanner class. See, मैंने तीनों भी बताया. Scanf नाम का function if you are in C, in नाम का object, iOStream class का object if you are in C++, and if you are in Java, use the object of scanner. Now the difference between C++ and Java is like the object of scene, that is the iStream class object of scene, that is already been created. It is already been created. But when you come to Java, such a scanner class object is not created. So you have to create that object over here. You have to create that object over here, and to create that object, you have to say it like this: scanner, which is the class that you need to use, SC. SC क्या है? It is a reference. What is SC? It is a variable of that class that you are creating. So it says scanner SC equals to. You have to say new scanner. New scanner. So whatever the objects that you create in Java, it has been created by saying new scanner, or by saying new and the name of the class. Object has been created. Whatever the object that has been created, you just have to, whatever the object that you want to create, you have to pass one input stream object to it. अब ये ऐसे क्यों करना है? Why this has to be done? What is the purpose of this? This entire thing you will get to know when we are going to finish the topic of constructor. Right now, those who don't know what is constructor, should follow this particular syntax as it is. I am saying. So you have to say it like this, system.in compulsory. सर ऐसे क्यों करना है, ऐसे क्यों करना है, इसके लिए you have to open the class called as a scanner. So you just go into this particular package called as java.util. Go into the package called as java.util. Into the java.util, you will find it out the class called as the scanner. So this is the class called as a scanner. And in this class scanner, you can find it out. This is the way to create the object. ये मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, ये document खुद कह रहा है. So this is saying scanner is equal to new scanner system.in. Now, why it is telling you like this? Because if you look at the constructor that this scanner class has, so there is no any parameterless constructor. यहाँ पे जो constructor है, these constructors has to provide a value to it, or we could say to call these constructors, you have to provide an argument to it. Either of this one of the type. So those who don't know the constructors, for them, you just have to believe this Java document and you just have to use it as it is. आपको बस Java document को believe करना है और उसको बस as it is use करना है. Don't touch it in. ठीक है? Do not try to do any next type of R&D. कर नहीं सकते because you don't know what is the constructor. हाँ, जिनको पता है, they can just go through the constructors and they can use the respective scanner class object. Generally, the object that we need to use is the input stream object. Now, because it is being told into the documentation, you have to use it like this: scanner s equals to new scanner system.in. Why system.in? Because it requires an object of input stream, and that object of input stream is already created into this system class, which is there present as a field inside it. So maybe system class I have showed you on day 1, maybe on Saturday I have shown the system class to you, and into the system class you have used one of its object called as out, and today we are using one of the another object called as the in. So आप इसको थोड़ा सा रिलेट कर पाओगे तो इट इज लाइक सी आउट एंड सी. अगर आप सी से रिलेट कर पाओगे, आप वैसे उसको कह सकते हो the objects of scene and cout are created within the iostream header file. Here the objects of input stream and print stream are created inside this system class. So in is an object of input stream, out is an object of print stream. In, or we could say input stream, is used to take the input from user. Out it is used to display the value to the user on the console. So इसके लिए इन objects का use किया जाता है from the system class. So when you want to take the input from the user, you need to create the object of a scanner class object where it takes the argument of the input stream. यानी कि internally ये input stream को use करता है, input stream को use करता है to take the input. Now what this scanner class has to provide? ये scanner class क्या provide करता है? So scanner class provides the different methods to take the input, and it specifically takes the input of that respective type. यानी कि यहाँ पे आपको टाइप कन्वर्जेंस करने की जरूरत नहीं है, वो जो टाइप का आप एंटर करोगे उसी रिस्पेक्टिव टाइप में वो कैप्चर करके इट विल टेक दैट इनपुट इनटू देयर रिस्पेक्टिव प्रिमिटिव टाइप्स. सी दिस हाउ इट इज पॉसिबल. सो सपोज आई वांट टू टेक द इनपुट ऑफ अ नेम. सो अगर नेम के अंदर मुझे वैल्यू चाहिए, यू जस्ट हैव टू से sc व्हिच इज गोइंग टू बी स्कैनर, और इसके ऊपर मेथड कॉल करो कॉल्ड एज द नेक्स्ट. सो दिस नेक्स्ट इज अ मेथड दैट विल एक्सेप्ट द, we could say, a string value from the console. यानी कि जो भी आपको string value enter करना है, नेम क्या होता है, string value में आएगा. So that string value, if you want to accept from the console, you have to use a method called as the next. Suppose I want to accept the integer value. अगर integer value accept करना है, you just have to say age equals to sc dot, यहाँ पे जाके कहो next int. That's it. अगर आपको let's say आगे जाकर के you want to accept a double value, you just have to say sc dot next double. यानी कि वॉट एवर टाइप ऑफ वैल्यू यू वांट टू एक्सेप्ट, जिस भी टाइप का वैल्यू आपको एक्सेप्ट करना है यूजर से, यू जस्ट यूज दैट रिस्पेक्टिव मेथड एंड दोज वैल्यूज विल बी कैप्चर्ड एंड विल बी केप्ट इनसाइड दिस वेरिएबल्स. तो वो कैप्चर किए जाएंगे और इन वेरिएबल्स के अंदर रखे जाएंगे. सो लेट अस टेस्ट इट आउट. जरा टेस्ट करके देखते हैं. सो मे बी आई वांट टू जस्ट रिमूव दिस डबल. ये अभी नहीं चाहिए. आई जस्ट वांट टू एंटर लेट्स से द एज, नेम एंड एज ऑफ द पर्सन. So let us run this particular code, and maybe I'm going to say enter the name. Maybe I could say this is going to be Rohan, and maybe the age, maybe I'm going to say 32, and that's it. The values are being entered. Now whatever the values are being entered over here, जो भी मैं values यहाँ पे enter कर रहा हूँ, so these values I want to display it onto the console. मुझे maybe यहाँ पे console के ऊपर उसको display भी करना है. So maybe I could say it like this: system.out.println. This is going to be the name. So I could say the name dash, this is going to be plus name. So this is going to be plus, this is the name. And similarly, I want to display the age. So this is going to be the age. तो दोनों भी name and age यहाँ पे display करता है. Now run this particular code and you can find it out that I can definitely enter the name, I can enter the age, and what you can find is the name and age of a particular person. So this is how you can take the input from user now. अब आप धीरे धीरे user से inputs भी ले सकते हो. That's how it has been done. Let me know. Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Any questions that you have regarding the scanner class object? आप मुझे बता सकते हो. You can ask. What is the explanation that has been required? Any inputs and prints the value, the syntax is same. Yes. जिस भी टाइप का इनपुट आपको चाहिए, so whether you want it for string, whether you want it for int, whether you want it for double, whether you want it for, let's say, float, you just have to use the respective method. Just check the scanner class. So let me go into the scanner class once again. So scanner class के अंदर if you look at the methods that it is providing you, it has the methods from, let's say, next, start over here. Next boolean, next byte, next double, next float, next int, next line, next long, next short, and so on and so on. So you just have to use the respective method to take the input of that specific primitive type. So input के लिए use करो, and this is how you can do it. Why do we need a next int? It is not used in case of name. See, name के लिए generally it is next or it is going to be next line. See the difference. So let me show you the difference. Let me run this particular code and let me show you. So if I say it like this, Rohan Paramni, and I hit enter, so you get an error because it is saying that you have entered a space between this particular two, we could say, words. That means if you want to take an entire string as an input, so it is not a method called as a next, it is going to be the method called as a line. Next method is used only when you want to accept a single word as an input. So if you want to accept an entire statement, or we could say a group of words, we could say a statement, we could say a full name, you could say. So in that case, you have to go for something called as a next line. So then I can say this is going to be Ruhan Paramne. Hit enter the age, and this is how you get the input. So depending on your requirement, you should be using those methods. It is not something that you should be by hearting it. It is based on the requirement. So if you go over here and if you look at those methods, you will be getting that information. So if you look at next int, what it returns you is an integer value. So it scans the next token of the input as an int. So ये कह रहा है कि ये next token as a int उसको scan करेगा. So if you next line check करोगे तो it returns a string. It definitely returns a string, but advances the scanner past the current line and returns the input that was string. यानी कि ये particular line तब तक scan करेगा जब तक आप enter नहीं मारते हो. यानी कि you go to the next line. Similarly, we have the method called as a next, which again returns a string value. और ये string value, so not next, this is the next. ये return करता है एक complete token from the second. Complete token in the sense without any spaces. Tokens are the words without spaces. तो ये next token को यहाँ से scan करके return करता है. So whether you want to take the input as a single word or you want to take the input as an entire statement, depending on that, you should be using those methods. The methods we use. What to use for floating value? As I have shown it to you, so many methods. इसमें से use करो तो boolean होगा तो boolean, byte होगा तो byte, double होगा तो double, float होगा तो float. So it is next and that particular primitive type. ऐसे आपको scan करके लेना है. नेक्स्ट कैरेक्टर नहीं, कैरेक्टर भी क्या होता है, इट इज अ स्ट्रिंग एक्चुअली. तो कैरेक्टर भी मैं स्ट्रिंग में रख ही सकता हूँ. सो इट इज गोइंग टू बी डायरेक्टली नेक्स्ट. सिर्फ और सिर्फ नेक्स्ट आप यूज करो, मिल जाएगा. यू डोंट हैव टू यूज एनीथिंग अदर फॉर दैट. नेक्स्ट कैरेक्टर वगैरह करने की जरूरत नहीं है. सो लेट मी शो यू द एग्जांपल. थोड़ा सा बेटर एग्जांपल भी करते हैं. सो दिस इज रियली सिंपल. डूइंग एवरीथिंग इनटू द मेन does not actually tells us how it is being used into the development. So let us do a kind of a good thing over here. So maybe I want to create a new, we could say, a class over here. Maybe we will call this class as an employee class. Or rather, I will call it as a program 02. program 02, and I could say there is going to be a main. See, this class I am going to use it multiple times now. अब ये class जो रहेगा वो मैं काफी बार use करने वाला हूँ. So that is why you can understand it, that how we are going to use it later on. See this. Class का नाम है employee. ठीक है, and as we talked about today that whenever you are creating a class, that means you are doing an encapsulation over here, and you are going to create the object which is abstraction for you, and you can create multiple objects so that the class is defined once, a user defined type is defined once, and you can start using it multiple times. So that is the example that I want to cover it up right now. So see this. Whenever you say class employee, this class employee is going to have multiple fields inside it. Yani there are going to be multiple variables inside it. So maybe I'm going to say this is going to be the ID, this is going to be the name, and this is going to be the salary. So I could say double salary. See this. The employee consists of these three fields: ID, name, and salary. So for this employee, what I need is I need a method where we are going to say accept employee, where I need to accept the data for this employee. And similarly, I require one more method where we are going to call it as display employee. Display. So the same thing that we have covered into our demo 01, where we created that example of class time, but the accept and display method was empty. So now I want to populate this method. Now see how it is. So whenever I want to create the employees, because an organization is going to have multiple employees. So because the organization is going to have multiple employees, I'm going to say employee E1 equals to new employee. So what I have created is the object of an employee. How many employees do you have? Maybe there are going to be multiple employees. So there are going to be E1, E2, E3, E4, E5. So there are going to be so many employees. So for every single employee, I do need to accept the data from user. I need to display the data of every single employee to the user. So to accept that particular data, I will create the object of the scanner class. So say scanner sc equals to new scanner. You can say system.in. That is how you can create the object of the scanner class. Now, what do you require? What I require is to input all the details of the employee. So maybe I'm going to say system.out.println. So you can ask the user by saying enter the employee ID. You can say it like this. So can you tell me employee ID कौन से type का है? Employee ID कौन से type का है? Employee ID is of which type? So which method should I use from the scanner class? Which method should I use from the scanner class? So I have to say sc dot next. Yes, very good. sc dot next it. Very good. Similarly, what I need to do, sorry, it is not empid, it is ID, empid ID, whatever you want to say. Similarly, what I want to say is like enter the name of the employee, and similarly, I want to say enter the salary of the employee. So can you tell me name is of which type? Very good. It is of string type. So what I'm going to use is sc dot. क्या use कर सकता हूँ? What are the options that I have? Either I can go for next or I can go for the next line. I will go for the next. मैं next के लिए जाता हूँ. I just want to enter the first name. So it is going to be the first name. I could say enter the first name. बस काफी. And then I want to enter the salary. Salary, let's say this is going to be of type double. अगर double होगा तो which is the method that I need to call? Because salary is of type double. So which is the method? Very good. It is going to be sc dot next double. So whatever are the different fields that you have inside your class, so based on that, you should be accepting those details from the user. So whenever you accept those details from the user, with respective to the type of fields that you have, you should be using the correct methods from the scanner class. So use those particular methods, and this is how you are going to accept. Now, once you are going to accept that, the next thing is to display those employees. So to display those employees, you are going to say system.out.println. So whatever is the employee ID of that employee, you can say it like this, plus this is going to be the ID. So similarly, like this ID, I'm going to display the name and I'm going to display the salary. So I can say this is going to be the name of the user. This is the name of the user, or we could say employee. This is the salary of the employee. So this is going to be the salary of the employee. So what I have created is a class. Class consists of fields and methods. Even the methods are completed with the help of the scanner class, and even the display is completed. Now it's time to test it out. अब टाइम है उसको टेस्ट करने का. So now I'm saying employee E1 equals to new employee. That means one object is created, and on this object, I just want to say E1 dot accept employee. And after accepting, I just want to say E1 dot display employee. यानी कि आप employees को accept भी करो, employees को display भी कर सकते हैं. Run this particular code and please observe what you get into the output. So now it says enter the employee ID. Maybe I will enter the employee ID as one. Maybe the first name I can say this is going to be Anil. Maybe the salary I want to say it is going to be 10,000. So hit enter and what you get is the employee that you have entered. Now this is just one employee. So whatever number of employees that you require, now you can start creating it. So maybe I am going to say, just like I have created one employee E1, I am going to say employee E2 equals to new employee like this. Not only that, what if I have the third employee? You can say employee E3 equals to new employee. Whatever are the employees, what you can do is you can start accepting all those employees. So you can say E2 dot accept employee, E3 dot accept employee. Now see the changes that we are doing over here. यहाँ पे जरा changes को check. So we have created the class only once. We have created the class only once. However, we are creating the multiple objects of it. Now every single time I don't have to define an entire employee. Every single time I just have to create a simple object and into that single object I just need to accept the details. अब मुझे बार बार क्लास लिखने की जरूरत नहीं, यानी कि implementation of the class is done only once. Now what I'm doing is I am just creating the objects. Now I'm just doing with the, or just I'm dealing with the abstraction. So here you just create the objects E1, E2, E3, whatever the objects that you want, and you will be getting those information from the user. Maybe I just want to display those employees to the user. So you can say E2 dot display employee. Again, you can say E3 dot, this is going to be the display employee. The way you have accepted those employees, you can even display all those employees. So now you will be entering 3 employees in continuously, and you'll be displaying the 3 employees continuously. So depending on the way you want, you can just execute it, run this particular code, and please observe. So enter the employee ID 1. This is going to be Anil. Maybe the salary is 10,000. Hit enter. Again, it is asking the second employee now. मुझे 3 employees को enter करना है. Maybe the second employee is going to be Mukesh. Maybe the salary is going to be, let's say, 20,000. Maybe I have to enter the third employee. Maybe I will call it as Ramesh, and the salary is going to be, we will say, 30,000. Okay, sorry, my bad. There is a slash over here. That's why it failed. तो चलो फिर से कोई नहीं, फिर से एंटर करते हैं. So employee ID is going to be 1. We have the Anil. We have the 10,000. We have employee ID 2. We have the Mukesh. Salary is 20,000. And the third, we have the Ramesh. Ramesh. Where it is. So this is going to be Ramesh, and the salary is going to be, let's say, 30,000. And you can find it out all the details that I have entered over here. जितने भी डिटेल्स में एंटर करते जा रहा हूं, all those objects are being stored inside the Java. Look at that. This is the way you can create it. So let me know whatever the contents that we have seen today, is this clear to you? So what we have covered is like language fundamentals. We have seen the class object reference, widening and narrowing, wrapper classes, boxing, unboxing. कोई भी क्वेश्चंस इसके अंदर होंगे, you can just ask those questions. I will be taking up those questions. You need to practice this all. ये सारी चीजें प्रैक्टिस करनी पड़ेगी आपको, then and then you will be more comfortable. Why do we need to define scanner class? Is it already defined? No. Scanner सिर्फ एक क्लास डिफाइन है, बस उसका ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं है. So what we are creating is the object of the scanner class. क्लास तो है, बट ऑब्जेक्ट किधर है? यानी कि एनकैप्सुलेशन तो हुआ है, एब्स्ट्रैक्शन किधर है? So here you have to create the object. So create the object, and whatever the required things are, you just call those methods and you just start working with it. That is why we have to create the object. क्लास नहीं क्रिएट करना है, ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट करना है. ठीक है? Yes. Can you share the data? Yes. Again today when I'm going to post the message about data is been uploaded, so I will put the link over that. Git की link message में डाल दूंगा. I hope every one of you is there into the WhatsApp. यहाँ पे अगर आप नोटिस करोगे, like when I'm using this scanner class, जरा प्लीज नोटिस करो. This question is really important. Maybe I will just remove this scanner का ऑब्जेक्ट यहाँ पे 1 मिनट के लिए रिमूव करता हूँ. Can you find it out something called as import java.util.scanner? So whenever I'm creating the scanner class, see this line number 1, there is nothing right now on this line number 1. यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं है. So when I'm going to say scanner, control space bar, and when I say enter, you will find it out automatically. The scanner has been imported from a package, from a particular package, java.util package. I was not importing it; it is done automatically. So let me complete this statement. Scanner system.in. So exactly ये है क्या? What this is? Now for this you have to wait until we start with the concept of packages. Right now you have to use it as it is. So here you can see that whatever this class that I was using, system class I was using, maybe string, maybe integer, maybe double, everything was present inside a package called as java.lang. So java.lang package के अंदर what we have are all these classes. Look at this. We have a byte, we have a character, we have a double, we have a float, we have a long, we have an integer, and so on and so on. Not only that, even the string and the system class are also present inside the java.lang package. But if you talk about the scanner class, it is not present over here. The scanner is present inside a package called as java.util. So there is another package called as java.util. And within this java.util, you will find it out there is a class called as a scanner. Just below here, you will find it out there is a class called as a scanner. ये कौन से पैकेज में है? java.util पैकेज में. So whatever classes that you want to access from java.lang package, you do not have to import it. उसको import करने की जरूरत नहीं. But if you are using any classes other than java.lang package or the classes that are present other than java.lang package, then those classes needs to be imported. तो उन classes को यहाँ पे import करना पड़ता है. That is the way it works. Because जनरली जो क्लासेस होते हैं, यानी कि जो java.lang पैकेज के जितने भी क्लासेस है, ऑल दोस क्लासेस उनके डॉट क्लास फाइल्स आर प्रेजेंट इनसाइड द करंट क्लास पाथ. The current class path where your application is going to load all those classes, and that is why you do not have to import it. But because other packages are not present inside the current class path, you have to import it. आपको import करना पड़ता है. So only for java.lang package classes, you do not have to import anything. But other than java.lang packages, you have to import those classes. Then and then you will be getting those particular objects. Otherwise, it will give you an error. So if I do not import the scanner class, and if I say it like this, scanner sc equals to so because of the, let's say, auto package, we could say manipulation that I have enabled into the settings, जैसे मैं फाइल को सेव करता हूं, इट इज गोइंग टू बी ऑटोमेटिकली इंपोर्टेड. इन माय केस, आपके केस में ऐसा नहीं होगा, सो यू कैन चेक दैट आउट. सो इफ यू डू नॉट इंपोर्ट इट, यू विल गेट एन एरर ओवर हियर वेयर इट विल से स्कैनर कैन नॉट बी रिजॉल्व्ड. नाउ सी दिस प्रोग्राम इज नॉट सेव्ड. द मोमेंट आई सेव दिस प्रोग्राम, it automatically imports it. So some of the features that is already been enabled for my STS, मैंने enable करके रखा है to organize my imports. मुझे imports को organize करना होता है इसके. So that is how it works. Yes. Any other questions? Yes, you can say that. Without Java documentation, you cannot be a Java developer. यानी कि आप Java development कर ही नहीं सकते. Because this is so huge that you cannot remember each and everything. Even if you ask me anything, कि सर चलो एकदम से मुझे shortcut setup नहीं बता सकते. You have to go into the documentation. You have to read actually what it is trying to say, and then you have to work with it. There is no any other way. A developer cannot be a developer without the documentation. So यहाँ पे अगर आप चेक करोगे तो डॉक्स के बिना आप डेवलपमेंट कर ही नहीं पाओगे. सो आप कोई भी डॉक्स ओपन करो, नॉट ओनली जावा, वेदर यू वांट टू वर्क विद C++, अरे आपके पास C++ का भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है. अच्छा, यू वांट टू वर्क विद समथिंग कॉल्ड एज लेट्स से कोटलिन, तो कोटलिन का भी डॉक्यूमेंटेशन है. यू हैव टू गो फॉर द कोटलिन, एंड यस, यू कैन जस्ट गो फॉर इट. होम में जाओ, बेसिक्स में जाओ, whatever the language that you want to work, Kotlin which is built on top of Java. जिसको जावा अच्छे से आता है, he can definitely go for Kotlin. Not only that, whether you want to learn MySQL later on, whether you want to work with the React, whether you want to work with the React Native, just go for it. Without the documentation, it is not possible. Documentation तो चाहिए ही चाहिए, बिना इसके आप काम नहीं कर सकते. यानी कि a developer cannot be a developer without this. That is how I could say. So don't forget to keep the documents handy. Documents आपको side by side देखना ही देखना है, because till the end of this entire sessions, I am going to use this documentation. ये तो अभी काफी बेसिक यूज केस है, but anyhow, as we progress further, as we start looking at those classes, I am going to refer this document and I am going to show you कि where it is been mentioned और ये कहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो. Even the hierarchy that we are looking at, even the each and everything that we are looking at, it is already present inside this documentation. Without this, you cannot actually work with Java. Java is an entire ocean, एक पूरा का पूरा sea है, and what you are doing is you are just on the beach and you are enjoying the view of the sea. Maybe you could say I am there around 8 to 10 kilometers inside the sea where I'm working right now, but the Java is completely an ocean. और आप ocean को imagine कर सकते हो. Ocean is so huge. You cannot explore each and every part of the ocean. यानी कि उसको एक्सप्लोर करने के लिए भी कैन यू इमेजिन द नंबर ऑफ डेज दैट यू रिक्वायर. So maybe you have to invest your entire life to go through each and every section of the ocean, which is literally not possible. Maybe I'm enjoying the 8, 9, 10 kilometers inside the ocean. That means I'm enjoying that much Java. Maybe you are right now at the coast and you are just looking at it and you are saying कि वाह लहरें क्या मस्त आ रही हैं. So Java is so cool, Java is so good. So we are having a happy time right now. The moment you start entering the ocean, you have some different challenges. Maybe day 1, day 2, day 3, you will be enjoying it, but day 4, day 5, day 6, you will be saying, "Oh, so Java is so in depth. So we have a different challenge now." So even going 1 to 2 kilometers inside the ocean, you say, "Arey, ये तो एक challenge आ गया हमारे सामने," and that is going to be the Java for you. And believe me, it is really fun to learn any language in this way. मजा आएगा सीखने में. Yes. Yes, all the notes are going to be there onto the Git. So I do not share it directly onto the WhatsApp, but what I do is I do share it onto the GitHub. So you can just go to this particular link. I can say on this CoreJava-Day02. इसकी लिंक मैं आपको WhatsApp के ऊपर शेयर करूंगा. आपको day 1 का भी मिल जाएगा और day 2 का आज का भी डेटा वहां पे मिल जाएगा. You will be having today's data as well. Okay? Nothing is important nahi. Java.lang is by default present. You could say just like this. So even if you do not import it, it is fine. So if I'm using any of the classes like string ho gaya, like integer, double, number, or whatever we could say the classes that are present inside the Java.lang, you can start using it directly without importing. I could say without importing. It is not something it is defaultly imported. It is something where the .class files are present into our current class path. So it is like Java has its own class path from where it starts loading those classes into the JVM, where the JVM knows where those .class files are mentioned. So Java.lang package and all its classes, all its .class files are present in our current class path. And that is the reason why it allows us. So that is why it is present actually. It is not something default if we do not import it, or if you import now that will be not be available. ऐसा नहीं है. It is going to be there within your application, within your current class path. Correct? Fine. So maybe let us do one thing. Let me pause the recording now. So I think this is it for today. आज के लिए इतना ही काफी. I wanted to start it with the concept of packages and rest of the things, but again depends on how you are going to respond me. If you tell me okay, these concepts you don't know, maybe I will be sharing those concepts and then we will be looking at those topics. But if you say sir we know the concept, then maybe we will be looking at some advanced examples. Just like because today we were able to finish it, I have taken this particular example. Agar nahi, to I must have we could say invested the time into the basics to understand the rest of the parts. So how you are going to respond me, how you are going to tell me कि हाँ सर हमें समझ आ गया, हमें समझ नहीं आया है. So maybe you can repeat this. So depending on that, we will be having our examples, the next examples I could say. Okay. So make sure you do respond into the chat box whether you have got the concept, whether you haven't got the concept. So respond करते जाओ so that I could know that what needs to be done or what needs to be taught or which example needs to be taken up. So depending on your understanding, the examples are going to be changed over here. Okay. So for today, it is going to be that much. आज के लिए इतना ही है. So let me pause the recording now.